Hello everyone. Hi, how are you guys doing today? Welcome back to the BUFFYCAST Season 6. We're still doing it. This should be like the last thing I record, maybe. I'm gonna include some questions probably at the end of this, but I'll figure out how I do this. But okay, I've been kind of looking forward to this because I've been looking forward to characters. I'm excited to talk about some characters because I think that more than anything, characters is something that is really driving this whole season, more so than any other plot or theme, because they exist. But I think that characters is really what is driving this whole thing because the theme of this whole season is that life just kind of sucks sometimes, doesn't it? Like, it's just like it's difficult and it's painful, and there's a lot of bad things that happen at any given time. And it's also just so fucking hard. But there's a couple different angles you can take whenever you approach something like that. And the angle that this season is taking is essentially putting you in the shoes of every individual and telling you this is the way in which life sucks for this person, and this is how they feel about it. And this is the toll that it's taking on them. And we're really approaching it from this perspective of like the individual person, the character, and how they are dealing with that and how difficult it is. And that's something that I deeply, deeply appreciate about this season. And it's something I really love. And it's the reason why this season is one of my favorites. Like, this season fucking bangs. And the reason why it does is because of this. But again, like, what makes it so interesting to me is also that it's approaching it from the angle of like, hey, we're gonna really sit with every one of these characters and we're gonna see how difficult it is for them. And that means that we have some juicy character conversations to be had now, and I'm gonna do that. This is really good. I like it. So we're gonna be talking about some characters, and I think we should begin with the titular character. Let's talk about Buffy Summers.
She's been through a lot with the death.
I think that this season's Buffy is my favorite Buffy. Like, I will be the first person to come out and say that I don't really feel super attached to Buffy Summers, historically speaking. While watching the show, I never really felt like I got Buffy Summers on like a personal level. I understand her, but on a personal level, I am not really connecting with her very much. There is elements from like every other character that is succeeding more at making me care about them on a personal level than Buffy Summers. Because Buffy Summers is not really a character that I personally really like empathize much with. I can sympathize with her in the sense that like I understand what she's going through and I'm like, oh, that sucks. But I don't get it, you know, on like a personal level. When Dawn was introduced, I was more on Dawn's side because I get that more. You know, the dynamic that we're approaching like Buffy and Dawn, I'm definitely way more towards the Dawn side. And I still am, honestly. But like every other character, I feel like Faith and Tara and even Xander on some level, and maybe even Willow on some level. I don't know. Like every other, even Giles, every other character, I'm like, I grab elements of them and I'm like, ooh, I get that. I get that. I get that. Buffy, not so much. So with all of that said, Season 6 Buffy is, I think, the first time I'm finally kind of landing on the realm of I'm starting to get Buffy on like a personal, intimate level. And the reason why is because this is the season in which Buffy is like, man, life is difficult. And I'm like, yes, yes, it is. Because so many of what Buffy has been before is the premise of the show, the premise of this whole story even existing from the very beginning. It's like, what if you had like your average American high school girl wants to be trendy, wants to be popular, wants to be cool in front of her friends, like cheerleader type. And now she's a superhero and she has to kill vampires. Like that's the basic idea of what the show is. Then what the show does with it is when it gets more interesting. But that means that Buffy Summers is starting from a place in which like it couldn't be more alien for me. I'm not even American. Like there's so many things about Buffy that I'm just like, I'm not really understanding much of what that is. I'm just enjoying it from a distance. But the moment in which we go into season 6, and season 6 is like Buffy comes back to life and it's all suffering and it's all pain and it's all strife and conflict, and now she's confused, she doesn't know what's happening. She was like, I was content, I was complete, I was finished, I was happy. And now I'm being dragged back into a world of pure just mayhem. Honestly, I'm being thrown in there, and now I have to figure out what it's like to like. I have to get money. I have to take care of Dawn. I have responsibilities. And all of this is something that Buffy is going through, like the extreme version of what it's like to just be an adult, right? Like Buffy's going through the extreme version of that, because really what that is like when you were a teenager and you were going to school and you were just kind of hanging out and you were having fun. That was all fun and games, and you maybe felt a lot of there are certainly a lot of things that weren't great about that, but there's a different level of despair that arrives when suddenly the world kind of flips and it's like, okay, now you have to go and figure that shit out, you know? And that also is different depending on each culture. And I believe that United States American culture is also something that is very common to see, in that the moment you turn 18 is like, all right, get the fuck out, you know, like go figure out your life, you know, go and make money. And that's not just exclusive to US American culture. I just think it's more prevalent there. But it's one of those things in which, like, the transition to adulthood hits Buffy so hard in the face because, well, she was in heaven. She was done. She was happy. She was fine. And now she's being forced to deal with all of this. But you can actually empathize with that, because even though I didn't die and go to heaven and was forced to come back and work in late stage capitalism, I do understand the idea of just like, you know, I was just kind of chilling. I was playing video games. I was enjoying my life. And now I just kind of have to force to fight to survive, honestly. And that is something that a lot of us can empathize with very deeply. So this is an idea that immediately like grabs me, because I'm immediately like, okay, but that's real shit. You know, that's something I understand on a personal level. And again, like that is something that with Buffy Summers, I don't think I've felt before. Maybe in some small levels and maybe some small episodes I was able to grab something and be like, oh, I get that. But this is the first time that like the entire character of Buffy is something that I'm like, I feel you, girl. I'm right there with you, bestie. And that's also part of the reason why when I ranked those episodes in the video where I ranked episodes, by the way, like I did make a video of that. What is the best episode of season 6? It's the last thing I recorded. That's the reason why like something like Life Serial will rank relatively high, and it's because I'm watching that episode and it's just like Buffy is like, okay, I'm gonna go back to university, I'm gonna study, and then she can't do that. And then she's like, okay, I'm gonna go and work. I guess I'm gonna try retail, you know, like I have some friends that can give me an in and stuff. And then she hated that within like 5 minutes. Like it was hell. She tried to do manual labor, she tried to do construction. She was faced with the fact that she was too good for construction, and that made everyone else hate her because she was too efficient, and also misogyny. So, you know, it sucked all around, you know. There was so many elements about what Buffy was trying to do in that episode, because she was just trying to survive. She was trying to figure out what the fuck to do with her life, because she needs to figure things out quickly, because she has to take care of Dawn, because she no longer has anything that she can hold on to, that she can do. So it all sucks. And she's failing at all of it. And it's like a level of distressing. It is a level of conflict that like I'm watching that happen and I'm like, yeah, like I get that. I get what that's like. I get what it's like to just like trying so hard to just like trying to figure out what to fucking do with your life. And you can't. Like you can't. You actually cannot. And the season ends and we still haven't figured out what Buffy can do with her life. Like, that's still a question that is up in the air, because it's something that is so difficult. You're asked as a kid of, like, you know, what do you want to do with your life? You know, like, what do you want to be when you grow older? And it's like, that's when children come out and it's like, I want to be a rock star, I want to be an astronaut or whatever. But then you have to settle for something more grounded and realistic, which is like, I don't know, I want to be an accountant, I want to be a lawyer, whatever. But then you have to settle for something even more realistic, which is like, maybe I'm not going to get the choice to have the capacitation for that in order to become that. Or I won't even want to do that the moment that I do that. The moment that I started working towards that goal, I realized that I actually don't want it. Because it is fucked up that you're asking that complex of a decision towards people that are certainly not qualified to choose that. And that's something that I believe. Like, I think it's fucked up to ask people that are like 18, like, okay, figure out the rest of your life right now, because you have to make money really quickly. And it's like, okay, I guess I'll try to be a lawyer. And then maybe you hate it, but at that point you're kind of locked in. And if you don't lock in, then that means that you wasted the past like 5 years of your life because you realize halfway through that you didn't like this. And then it becomes worse, right? And it's, you feel like a failure, you feel like, and it's, there's so many elements of that it's just really fucked up. And Buffy's going through that immediately. Like, she's struggling at first with education, and then she very quickly is just like, okay, I'm quitting because I can't do this. And then she's trying to find a job, and she eventually does end up finding a job in Double B Palace. She's working as a fast food worker at McDonald's, which is bad. It's really bad. It's about the worst thing you could find. It was about the worst thing you could have found. Like, it's really bad. And we spend like enough time. There's a whole episode about it, and then there's more in which like you really get to feel how much it sucks to be there. But there is a conversation that I really like between like Xander and Dawn, in which they make a joke of like, yeah, you're gonna have to take care of your deadbeat sister because, you know, she's never gonna have a real job. And there is an element of like they were joking, like Xander was, because Xander makes a joke out of everything. But then they just both like kind of have this like grim acknowledgement of like, yeah, it's really fucked up that Buffy is not gonna be able to have like a real future because she can't. And there is a tragedy to that is also a real tragedy. That happens to people every goddamn day in the real world. Like, and that is something about this season and this season's Buffy specifically that I look at and I'm like, I'm right there with you, girl. Like, I get you. I'm right there with you. And I'm really rooting for you, but at the same time, I can't really change the way society works. You know, like I can't do anything about it, and neither can Buffy. Buffy is doomed to maybe not have a stable like life ever, you know? And that's not just the fact that she's a slayer, but also because she just can't like she now has to serve as a single mother while having no capacitation for it. She doesn't know how to do anything, and she's immediately flailing and spiraling down because Buffy's like 21 or whatever, you know, like she's so young and she can't do any of this shit. It's too much, and I feel really bad for her. And this transition into adulthood, I'm not saying adulthood in the sense of like Buffy's now an adult. I mean adulthood in the sense of like a stage of life in which you have to do a lot of stuff really quickly for like, unless you face like really big consequences, you have to figure out your life right now, really quickly, or you're gonna die. Like your sister's gonna die. Like you have to figure out everything right now, and it's so stressful. It's so sad, and it's something in which like I look at Buffy in this situation, and I'm like, I'm here. I get it. I'm here. Like before, I wasn't here. And when I say I'm here, like I wasn't fully like super empathizing with Buffy Summers before, because she just wasn't the specific type of character that I would have empathized with a lot. My type of character I was empathizing with a lot was Faith, not Buffy, right? Like that's where I was landing in a like a scale. I was on that side instead of this side. But when I'm watching Buffy go through all of these struggle, I'm like, that one I get. I'm right here with you, girl. And that made it for a very interesting season in which I was so much more like personally invested too. And that actually makes me think that like, you know, I would understand if you are like a big fan of like season 2 and that's like your favorite season, that maybe you are personally invested in some of the struggles that Buffy was going through then because you were able to empathize with that a lot more, whereas I wasn't. But now that we reached season 6, I'm like, yeah, I'm right here. Like, I get you, girl. I get you. And yeah, like, maybe that is what makes the difference, or one of the differences, as to why I love this season so much. And it's because I'm immediately coming from, like, a very understanding place for the main character, which is something that I don't think I could have said before. And I really love that. And then it kept going, because that is the initial aspect of what Buffy's reality in the world. But then there's also the way in which Buffy actually develops. Because Buffy actually goes through like a full ass journey in the season. Like throughout the entire season, she goes through a full journey, and then she kind of sticks around after the journey is kind of over, which is very interesting. But Buffy has this thing in which she immediately feels extremely detached from the world. She feels detached from her friends. She feels detached from anything she has to do. She just feels like she has to do stuff that she doesn't want to do. Very relatable. And she's not connecting with anything or anyone, which is like why she resorts to like escapism. She's trying to find ways in which she just doesn't want to like think about it anymore. She goes drinking with Spike at one point, also in Life Zero, I believe. It was like, after I failed at everything, let me try and get drunk, see if that does anything. But then throughout the season, she does that over and over. She's emotionally like removed from her friends. She's not talking to them about anything that is going on with her. She's going to Spike in order to just fuck him, in order to just get like sex, because she actually just wants to feel sex, but she doesn't actually want to connect on any level emotionally with Spike. She just wants the sex. She just wants to do something that feels good without actually having any connection to the world. It's like something to remove herself from reality of things. It's just the feeling of the moment. Like, that's all she's seeking. To just feel good for like a couple minutes or whatever. And this is something that really, really fucks Dawn up, and I'm going to talk about that later. But it's something that Dawn calls out in her a couple of times. Because Dawn can see that Buffy is just not present. And Dawn feels really betrayed by that, because what Dawn wanted more than anything in the world was to like matter to someone, to other people. And then when Buffy died, what she wanted more than anything in the world was for Buffy to be back. And now she's back, but now Buffy doesn't actually care about being here. You know, she's not connecting with anybody. She's not talking to you. She's not caring that much. And it's the thing in which, like, yeah, you got what you wanted, but like Buffy being here and not wanting to be here is almost worse than if she was just dead, honestly. Like, because imagine that. Imagine like a loved one died and then you're like, oh my god, I wish they had, and I wish they were still here. Okay, they came back to life, but now they don't want to be around you anymore because they were better off dead. How would you feel about that? It would feel awful. It would really feel awful. It would make you feel like maybe you shouldn't fuck with that, which is what Willow probably would feel. But from the Dawn angle of like, okay, your loved one magically reappear, but now they don't want to talk to you. They're dismissing you. They're running away from you because they just don't want to deal with you anymore. They're just like, I'm over this. You would feel betrayed on some level, which is what Dawn probably felt. And that is the level of complexity to Buffy that, like, I understand. And also, like, I'm reprimanding her for it because, like, it sucks. Like, that's a straight up bad thing to do to the people around you. But I also understand that where Buffy is coming from, it makes a lot of sense that she would feel that way. Because, like, Buffy like died. Like, she was in heaven and then she was forced to come back and do all of this shit, right? Like, if I died and went to heaven, if I stared God in the face and I was like, man, okay, everything's good now, and then I'm pulled back and it's like, okay, you gotta fist fight some dudes and also you have to deal with late stage capitalism. I'm like, nah, I'm killing myself immediately again, you know? Like, I'd rather go back out and meet the big guy again. Like, I'd rather just do that. Like, instead of having to deal with all this shit. Like, I got confirmation that heaven exists and that I'm allowed in. So, I guess I'll do that. I guess I'd rather be doing that than doing this, you know? You guys can handle the whole thing. Maybe I'll have, like, a whole thing where I'm gonna tell you guys, like, straight up, like, listen, man, like, I can't do this shit. I'd rather just be there than being here. And that's not because of any of you specifically. It's just that the whole thing is something that I'm kind of over. Like, I don't want to. This whole thing is. So the fact that Buffy didn't do that, the fact that Buffy stayed, is already like a big aspect of her character in the season that maybe goes a little bit unnoticed, maybe goes a little bit unmentioned. The fact that she maybe just doesn't straight up kill herself and instead she decides, I'm gonna try to be here. And she fails at it for a long time, but she's at least here. You know, she's not going back to death again immediately. So Buffy has a sense of like duty and responsibility that actually grounded her here. And maybe she also feels like she has to be here for her friends, Because that's also the thing, is that she didn't tell them that she was in heaven immediately, because she actually didn't want to hurt their feelings. And that is something that is kind of nice. It's kind of nice, and it makes me feel like Buffy is really caring about these people still. But it is difficult to like emotionally get yourself to be in the place that they want you to be at when you were already just done with this whole thing, you know? Like, you're acting in a certain way because you know it's like the right thing to do, and it's the thing that you want to do, but emotionally, you're not there yet. Emotionally, you're just so far away. And that's what I saw in Buffy Summers. I keep saying Buffy Summers because I need to make a distinction between Buffy and Buffy the show. But in Buffy Summers, that's what I saw at the beginning of the season. And it lasted for a while. And I really enjoyed it. Like, there was a moment that I really think about that I really liked, which was an interaction when she was... I think, it was the episode when she was invisible, you know, because she wants to run away. And she was arriving back home, or like Dawn was arriving back home, I think. And they had a conversation in the kitchen. And Buffy was like, oh, let's get pizza or whatever. And she was just making a lot of light and fun about the situation of her being invisible or whatever. And Dawn had this like reaction of like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, she had this reaction of like, she felt betrayed of the fact that like Buffy didn't care enough about herself and wanting to be here. And Dawn was like, no, what is wrong with you? And because she felt how detached Buffy was. And that feels like a betrayal to Dawn, because Dawn wants Buffy to be here. And so it feels like a betrayal to what actually Dawn wants, which is just to be with her sister. And Buffy is like, I'm happy just not dealing with anything. I'm happy not being here. And Dawn is like, fuck you. Like, what are you doing? No. And then she's like, ran away. She like left. And that was like a wake-up call moment for Buffy in that episode of like, yeah, what am I doing? You know? And I like that. That is part of the struggle of Buffy Summers in the season that I really love. Because I love the complexity of like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I just want to run away. And then the people around you actually tell you, what is wrong with you? Why do you want to run away from me? That hurts me. And that, it becomes like a grounding point for Buffy of like, yeah, I am hurting Dawn. I am hurting the people around me. That's something that maybe a different kind of viewer would look at that and they go like, that's what makes me not like this season. But for me, that's what makes me love this season. And that is what makes me love Buffy Summers in this specific season. Because I love that struggle. I love how difficult it is to deal with that. But because it's also something that's very real. You know, her being invisible is not real, but the fact that your reaction to the complexity and stressful, like, reality of life being, I don't want to deal with it, I'm just gonna like cope any way I can, and then the world reminds you that you cannot opt out of it, people are hurt by your decisions, that is something that's very real. Just like so many people in the world are alcoholics because they like don't want to deal with a lot of shit. So they would rather opt to some kind of substance abuse. And then that becomes a problem in on itself for you and also for the people around you. And they have to like kind of intervene and be like, what are you doing? And that's how I felt. And that's something that is very, very real about this whole season. And the fact that Buffy Summers is going through it is something that I'm like, that's awesome. I love that because it's so complex. Like, it's not like, oh, Buffy's in the right all of the time. Buffy's always the hero. It's like, no. She's going through like a lot of shit that is bad. And people have to tell her that. And I like that. I really do like that. And the reason why I also like it is because Buffy Summers ends out coming the other end out of it. And it's great. Because as the season goes on, this is a problem that becomes more and more and more prominent, to the point in which Buffy realizes how prominent it is and that she has to get out of it. When she breaks down in front of Tara, she's breaking down in front of Tara because she is feeling like there's something wrong with her and she wanted an explanation as to what that was. And she wanted to be told that there was something that was like fundamentally like wrong with her on like almost like biological level. Like there's something wrong with my meat that is making me act out like this. But no, it's just you're acting that way because that's just who you are. And that is something that broke Buffy down a little bit. But then she ends up overcoming that. And that's something that's really cool. She ends up breaking up with Spike and breaking up with Spike in like a way. I mean, they were not dating, but she ends up destroying the relationship of like, we're having sex. And the way she does that is also extremely good because she tells him we're not doing this anymore in a way in which she's also respecting him. She's like, I am taking advantage of you and I'm really sorry that I did that, William. Like, I'm sorry, but we're done here. And she says his name. She's like, William. And it's awesome because it's like the first time she's like truly deeply respecting Spike as a person. And that had to break like Spike's brain on some level. And I love that she's actually moving on from her like unhealthy behaviors that she's indulging on in order to run away from reality. It's just like substance abuse, alcohol. Fucking Spike was one of those things. Fucking Spike was, I'm running away to this thing in order to feel good for a little bit so I don't have to worry about the reality of anything else. That's what Spike was. Spike was a drug and she's quitting it. She's like, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. The fucked up part about it that makes it especially fucked up is that she was utilizing a person as a drug. And that's something that is dehumanizing to Spike, and it's something that Buffy realizes, and it's something that like she goes, I can't do this anymore. And she quits. She moves on from that. And you can tell that it's something that hurts her, and you can tell that it's something that she doesn't feel proud of, but it's something that she is actually taking the steps to actually get better. And she does. As she keeps going through the season, Buffy starts to become more and more aware of her surroundings and more like present, really, because like she wasn't present at all. She was extremely like away for the first half of the season. But as the season goes on, she ends up being at a place in which she actually feels for the people around her. She ends up being in a place in which she actually cares once more, rather than before where she like kind of didn't. Or it's not that she didn't, but it's like emotionally she couldn't bring herself to care even though she wanted. And now that's changing. And that's something that I really like in Buffy Summers as she goes through her journey here. Because it's a very compelling journey in that it's so difficult, but it's also something in which she becomes like a much wiser, better person for it. That's something that I find very commendable. To pull yourself back from that place in which you were at and see the light and go towards that. Like, that's something that I love to see that. I love to see the improvement in Buffy Summers. Nothing but positive talk about Buffy Summers this season, honestly. Like I understand that maybe some of you look at some of the Buffy behavior that she exerted in like the first half and you were like, that makes me sad because that makes Buffy like a bad person. She's not a bad person. She's a person that's going through a lot and she is improving and getting better, and she does. And I think that makes her way, way better than just a person that didn't have to deal with those issues. Because going through a lot of the reality of the world and those issues that make you feel like shit and make you go through places that you wouldn't like, and then deciding, I don't want to be that person anymore, that makes a way better person to me than a person that just never had to face those issues. I love that. I love that I'm seeing Buffy go through that. I love that I see Buffy get over that and become a better person. That's amazing to me. I love that so much. And part of the reason why she goes through that and she can have her, like, her journey in which she realizes that is actually the wrong answer, to quit on the world, to give up on it, is that it makes it very interesting when at the end of the season, the main antagonist is your best friend who has given up on the world. Let's talk about Willow Rosenberg.
Let me tell you something about Willow. She's a loser. And she always has been. And now, Willow's a junkie.
Willow this season is spicy. I'm trying to think about like how to talk about Willow here, because in the way in which I have a lot of positive things to say about Buffy, I don't know if I have much positive to say about Willow. I mean, I do. Like, I'm thinking about it and I do, but it's mostly a bunch of negatives. And that's just because like I'm watching Willow spiral down and double down on a lot of things in which you can watch my reactions to the show. You can see how like many times I kept saying like, well, Willow is going to realize that this is bad and that she should stop. And then the next episode, Willow like doubles down. And then she did that like 5 times. And at a certain point, I just kind of gave up At a certain point, I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm gonna stop saying that I trust Willow or that I believe in Willow because I don't anymore. Like, I actually don't know what she's gonna do, and I kind of don't care, right? Like, at a certain point, she betrayed my trust enough for me to be like, whatever. Like, whatever Willow does, I'm just like, sure, girl. Like, you do your thing, and then you deal with the consequences of that. You know, like, that's how I felt. And that's more or less what my reaction to half the season's Willow was. And that's also why I really, really like the episode in which Willow broke down crying and screaming, I'm sorry. Like, that was something that was really good to me. I love that. Because, like, at a certain point, like, you have to face the consequences of your actions. And I love that we got to see that with Willow. And it makes Willow very compelling, I will say. This is the season in which Willow has taken the biggest, like, front stage presence than any other season, I feel like. You know, she's the main antagonist of the season, kind of. You know, like, not really, but she's the big bad of the season that we have to stop in the finale, you know? And that's something that I kind of like. I do. But it's also one of those things in which, like, it felt miserable to watch. Buffy's situation also felt miserable to watch, but it felt rewarding. Willow's didn't feel rewarding necessarily, because Willow's didn't really get better. I mean, for a moment, it felt like it was getting better for like a 3 episodes chunk, and then everything goes to shit. So I feel like I am more excited to see Willow next season than what we saw in this season, because this season was just bad. It was just awful. If you were a Willow fan and you like nice Willow, then I'm sorry, this is not the season for you. But just like Buffy went through her journey and then she grew wiser and more understanding and more aware of her surroundings, Willow didn't do that. And it would be nice if next season we would be able to see that Willow. A Willow that has actually, like, not moved on, but has come out the other end of her traumatic set of events and behaviors that are now actually becoming fuel for her to want to be better. That would be nice to see next season. So I'm excited to see that version of Willow. If we're going to see that Willow, I want to see it. So that's something to look forward to in season 7. But for season 6, oh boy, Willow is something else. Because the season starts and she's immediately like, I am above God and I can bring people back to life and I don't give a fuck about anything. And it's like, okay, okay, girl, sure. And she succeeds. She brings Buffy back to life. She actually does succeed in doing that, which is something that, you know, like, we can question because we know that Buffy was happier dead, but also we wouldn't have the show if Willow hadn't brought Buffy back. So anything that happens in this season, which was miserable, to be fair, but next season as well, season 7, and anything that happens as a result of Buffy still being alive, we do have to kind of thank Willow for. But the problem is that Willow starts seeing herself as somebody who's above consequences, above rules, above laws, above nature, above anything. She's like, I can do whatever the fuck I want and nobody can stop me. And she starts to behave in that way. Whenever she has, like, a minor disagreement with her girlfriend, she's like, well, I'm just gonna manipulate her mind so that she's not angry at me anymore. It's bad. It's really bad. It's awful. Especially when you have the best girlfriend in the universe. Like, you have the best significant other you could possibly ask for. Tara was so good to you. Tara was so nice to you and to everybody. She was the greatest person we've ever seen in this show. For all we know, she's the greatest person who ever lived in the entirety of the Buffyverse. In the entire history of the universe in that world, for all we know, Tara was the best person. And Willow is like, well, I'm in the right, so I'm just gonna make her not be upset at me anymore. I'm just gonna swipe the problem away so that I don't actually have to face whatever she's saying to me, because I don't want to. I would rather change my girlfriend than change myself. And it's like, imagine looking at the Mona Lisa and being like, well, that's not that great, you know, like, I can do better. That's what Willow is going through. She's like, I can change her mind and you'll be fine. It's again, looking at the Mona Lisa and being like, if I put like a couple strokes in there, it would be better, you know, like, if I change it slightly, so it fits my needs, it would be better. You know, like it immediately makes you really hate Willow, kind of a little bit, when she starts doing that shit to Tara, which is why when Tara finds out that she's doing that shit to her, Tara gets understandably upset, and it becomes like a problem in which like you're 100% behind Tara's side. Like you're like, yes, fuck Willow. And Willow's response is to go, well, I'm gonna sweep that problem under the rug as well. I'm gonna make that a second problem go away, right? Like I'm gonna engage in the exact same behavior that is the first problem that put me in this position. I'm just gonna do it again, but like, you know, better. So like, so that I don't have to worry about the second problem, you know, in the same way that I didn't worry about the first problem for about a week. I'm gonna do the same for the second one, and this time it's gonna work. And it's the fact that you don't have the clarity to understand that this is something that could very easily backfire on you, because you just cannot imagine a world in which things don't go your way, in which consequences is something that you're still like affected by. You know, to imagine a world in which anything matters more than you do. That's the problem with Willow, is that she's like, well, whatever I feel and I want and I think is definitely above anything else, so I'm gonna bend the world to my will and everything will be fine. And then it's not. And you're just watching it happen. And that's why it feels so good again when Willow is like crying and screaming, I'm sorry, because like I wanted to see Willow break. I wanted to see Willow break so bad. I wanted everything to fall apart, and I wanted Willow to scream, I'm sorry, I was in the wrong, while she's crying. That's what I needed to see. And that's why it made me feel so good when it happened. Because we're building towards that. We're building towards Willow being the worst person in the world, essentially. The moment that you start manipulating Tara, it's like, I don't know, it's like you're Judas, you know? It's just like, imagine looking at Jesus Christ and being like, yeah, fuck that guy, I'm gonna do something that's better for me. That's what Willow feels like it's doing, because you're doing that shit to Tara. If she did that shit to anybody else, I would still don't like her, but it wouldn't be as hurtful as doing it to Tara. You know? So, okay, that's what's going on immediately with Willow, which leads us into the point in the season in which Willow breaks, in which Willow reality comes crashing down, and in which she has to face consequences, and she starts to change. And what's important about this is that she starts to change and get better because of her friends. Her friends are there for her. They take away all of her magic, all of her magical items and stuff, so that she doesn't have to do anything, so that she cannot do anything related to magic, so that she doesn't start indulging in her addiction again. And it kind of works. It does work. Like, Willow starts getting better and better and better, and it takes a number of episodes until you start to really feel like, okay, Willow's really trying here. And there is like an episode or two where Willow is doing some like Veronica Mars shit. Like, she's investigating stuff the old school way instead of just doing some magic shit. It's just like, no, I'm going around and I'm looking at clues and shit. And I'm like, that's really cool. I really like doing that. I really like that Willow's character. If it went in that direction, I would like that a lot. And it gets to the point in which we have the episode in which they're trapped in Buffy's house because of Dawn. And in that episode, Willow could have solved the problem, and she didn't. And Tara likes that she didn't, because Tara can see that the conviction that Willow has to like actually get better is something that is commendable. It's something that's very real. Like, Willow is not actually bullshitting this time. Willow's actually trying, and she's mostly succeeding. And it's this moment in which Tara feels really proud of Willow, and it's the beginning of the relationship kind of healing and them maybe getting back together. And it's something that feels very rewarding to see. It's something that feels very worth of celebration, and you do want to kind of feel good for Willow in that sense because you do want Willow to get better, but I mostly was feeling better for Tara because Tara deserves a better girlfriend, and the fact that Willow is becoming a better person means that Tara's like the person that Tara loves, because we know that they love each other. It means that the person that Tara loves is a better person now. And I'm like, my reaction wasn't like, well, I'm glad that Willow and Tara are getting back together. My reaction was, I'm glad that Tara can be happy now. Didn't go well for me. Didn't go well for anybody, ultimately. But moving on from that, that's mostly how I felt. Because I was never on Willow's side this season. This season, it's really the season in which Willow's behaviors went so far in the direction of you lost me, girl. Like in a way in which Buffy Summers in previous seasons wasn't at a place in which I feel like I could empathize with her a lot, and now in this season she is. Willow is a character who in previous seasons, earlier seasons, I felt like maybe I see a couple things in there that I can maybe empathize with. And this season, I'm like, okay, I don't fucking know who you are. Like, I don't give a fuck about you anymore. Like, that's how I feel about Willow. Like, she fully lost me. She completely 100% lost me. And I'm not saying that I don't care about what happens to her character, because I can see how it's nice storytelling. I can see how I like it, and I can see what Willow does for the story that I like. I just don't have to like her as a person. Whereas before I kind of did, and now I didn't anymore. Because Willow fully lost me. Because, like, and the thing is that I could see it happen already. You know, like in season 5, there was a like moment where she like gave Dawn that like book to bring Joyce back to life or whatever, and she played it around as if like, you know, oh, I didn't do anything. Oh, Dawn must have found it. Like it was this thing of like Willow. You can see the patterns of behavior that really become exacerbated this season, in that Willow starts to see herself as above consequences, and that becomes her entire character this season. And it's something in which I'm like, that is. I think this is something I said before. I think this is something I said in like maybe in that episode that I just mentioned with the book bringing Joyce back to life. I think that was maybe the episode where I mentioned that I feel like the way Willow is developing as a character is this like thing in which like if you're a kid and you are someone who just fucks around all the time, eventually you see consequences, and eventually you see the way that impacts the world, and you see the people that get hurt as a result of that. And maybe you learn, oh, I should not be as carefree as I am, because that actually has negative consequences, you know, not just for me, but for the world around me. And if you're someone that cares, you're gonna stop doing that. The contrast to that is a person who maybe their entire lives they were told, you can't do something. You can't do something. You have to behave. You have to be good. You have to give me good grades. You have to be. You have to stay in this like perfect, neat little mold. And if you don't, you're a fucking failure. You know. And that happens to a lot of people in the real world. And something that can happen to those kinds of people is that eventually, when they become an adult, they fully derail. They fully go off the deep end. Because they start entertaining the idea of like, I can do whatever the fuck I want. Because they don't have someone that is restraining them anymore. And maybe they do, but maybe they stop giving a shit about entertaining those people that tell you to do what to do. So then you start to feel like you're going the opposite way, because you go like, oh, I can do whatever the fuck I want, you know? Nobody can tell me what to do because everybody always told me what to do. And you know what? Fuck those people. I'm going to do whatever I want because I deserve to be happy. And what happens is that you get Willow. What happens with that kind of like experience, that when you follow that kind of thought, is that you become Willow. Willow Rosenberg, I feel like, is an example of that. In that Willow felt like she was always the shy little nerd who nobody cared about. She was a loser. She was she was all of these things. She was meek and shy and nerdy and a loser, and always, at best, number 2, because she's Buffy's sidekick. And that's like the whole thing. And that has some kind of internal feeling that it evokes in you, in that you feel like you're not really important. You feel like you're a loser. You feel like you're kind of worthless on some level. It really takes a blow to your self-esteem. And what happens with Willow is that after she gets together with Tara, her self-esteem starts improving a little bit. And we get confirmation as to why that was, and it's that Willow starts to feel like Willow actually matters because Tara made Willow matter. Because Tara loved Willow, and that means that Willow is now somebody that is worthy of something. Which is why it all derails to hell when Tara dies at the end. But before we get in there, like, the issue with that, and we start to see it more and more in season 4, and then definitely in season 5, and then definitely in season 6, is that Willow starts to see herself as above anything. And it's because Tara, inadvertently, is bringing out that feeling in Willow of, like, you don't have to be this, like, perfect, shy nerd. You can just do whatever you want. You can be happy, you know? And we can say that maybe the beginning of that is Buffy being like, oh, I can be into girls? Fuck yeah, you know? Like, Willow realizing that you can be a lesbian, actually, and that's cool. And the world is not going to end for that. It's actually pretty cool, pretty nice. Because, like, that... The show doesn't really tackle into this, but there's definitely a social stigma that happens if you're gay, right? If you're gay, if you're transgender, if you're anyone in any part of the LGBT community, you're gonna find some kind of social, like, pressure against you. And that's not cool. And that sucks. But Willow, we get to see how Willow actually, maybe as a result of that, is actually coming out the other end of, like, oh, I can be gay and that's cool. Fuck yeah. I can like Tara. And that makes me happy, and I can do all of these things. And then she starts entertaining that feeling more and more and more of, like, I can do what I want because it makes me happy. And the problem with that, following that specific line of reasoning as, like, a creed, is that when you do that, eventually you're gonna hit a moment in which you're gonna have to decide, do I want to keep entertaining the feeling of whatever I want to do and makes me happy is the only thing that matters? Or should you take a step back and be like, okay, I shouldn't have done that, you know? And Willow never hit that wall. Willow kept entertaining the thought of, like, whatever I want to do, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. Because, again, Willow never really faced what it was like to, because, okay, a little bit behind the scenes here is that if I'm gonna create a hypothetical binary, even though it's not, of the human experience, in that you have a person who is like Willow, in that they were very shy and very reserved, and then later in life they decide, oh, I can do whatever I want, but they didn't face consequences that tell them when to stop. I'm the opposite. I'm somebody who, I feel like when I was a child, I didn't give a fuck about anything. I really didn't. Until eventually you have to face consequences for it. You know, maybe you hurt somebody, and then you realize, like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. And that kind of becomes a moment that, like, snaps you back. And then you start seeing the world differently. You start to actually go in the opposite direction of, like, okay, I'm really, really, really going to try not to do that anymore. And then you start to being a lot more careful, a lot more thoughtful. And that's something that, personally, I understand. Which is why Willow fully loses me this season. Because I'm seeing Willow go the opposite direction. I'm seeing Willow come from, like, where I'm going, you know, trying to be more careful, more thoughtful, more understanding, keeping other people in mind a lot more. And Willow is, like, running away from that. She's like, I can do what I want, you know, just, like, tears her clothes off, goes fully naked, running into a distance, like, I can do whatever I want. Fuck consequences. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not about that. I don't follow you there, girl. I don't know whatever the fuck you're doing. I don't want to be anywhere near you. That's the way I'm looking at Willow this season. And it makes it for very interesting character storytelling. But man, I wasn't there. I really wasn't. But, okay, going into the final couple episodes, Tara dies. Tara dies to some absurd circumstances, really, let's be honest. And Willow, I will say that what they did with Willow makes for pretty clever storytelling when Tara dies, because we spend zero time setting why Willow does whatever she does, she immediately goes and kills Warren. And then she immediately goes and tries to kill the other two, Jonathan and Andrew. And then she immediately goes and tries to kill the entire world. You know? There's not a moment in which you sit there and you question like, oh, why is she doing that? Because you know why. Because you've been seeing Willow spiral down for like the whole season, and you see how Willow is maybe trying to get a little better, and then it all goes to shit because Sarah dies. But you understand, like, you have seen Willow and you've seen the shortcomings that Willow has and the problems that Willow has in this season, and you can see how that makes perfect sense the way that she would react in the final couple episodes after seeing Red. Like, you understand perfectly why that is. We spent 0 time setting that up because we have already set that up before. And I think that that's very clever storytelling. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, but that's more so in the storytelling of the season. But ultimately, characters are tools in which for you to tell the story with. Like, that's what they are. They are not real people. They are tools. But you can still feel and connect on some level with these tools that we call characters. I just didn't feel that way about Willow because she fully lost me. I'm like, I'm not there with you, girl. Like, I'm watching what you're doing and I think it's cool, but also I feel 0 empathy with you right now. Like, it couldn't be lower. It's actually 0. She fully lost me. So the final thing I can probably want to say about Willow is that I said this already before, but just to get into it deeper now that we have finished the season, and it's that I still don't know how to feel about the magic is drugs kind of thing that we're doing with Willow, that we did with Willow. Because essentially what we're telling with the story of Willow is that Willow is a drug addict, and the drug is magic. To the point that we have a magic dealer. We have a drug dealer in a drug den, but he does magic instead of cocaine, right? But that is what is supposed to evoke in the imagery that they give you. And like, we're really telling this tale of like addiction with Willow, and then she's overcoming that. And the thing is that everything that I said in the past like 20 minutes about Willow and her story and whatever, that has nothing to do with drugs. That has nothing to do with magic. It doesn't. It has to do with Willow's personality and the way that Willow sees the world and sees herself in the world. To me, that is the real problem. That was always the real problem. And I'm looking at everything that happened in the season and I'm like, that's the problem. Like, the problem was never magic, because magic is not drugs. They are making magic drugs. Now, retroactively, we are making magic be drugs, but that's not what magic ever was, and that's not, I think, what the problem is. The fact that magic is presented to you as drugs, and that's like, that becomes like a huge part of the season, you know, like everybody's helping Willow quit, and Willow being off magics is like a very big part of it. That's something which, like, I don't know if I agree with that, because like and the problem is that Willow, I made like a full comment on this before, and it's that I think the problem is that Willow has developed a tendency to shortcut through everything in life. It's just the fact that magic allows her to do that. Magic is something in which she can use to like not actually have to deal with consequences for anything. But the problem is not that she has something that allows her to skip consequences. The problem is that Willow believes that she's above consequences. That's the problem. It's the way that Willow looks at the world, not the magic that facilitates it. Which is why I'm sure, maybe not, but like, I'm expecting Willow to go back to do magics next season. You know, she's still gonna be a witch, she's still gonna do stuff. Maybe she's not gonna do it as often, but she's still gonna do a couple things every now and then. And it's because like magic is not really an issue. They made it be an issue for the sake of making like a weird parallel from magic to like drugs. But like, that's not the issue. That was never the issue. And everything that I said about Willow in the past like 25 minutes, like, that has nothing to do with like magic being cocaine or whatever. It's all about the way that Willow sees herself and feels about things. And I do think that at the end, we do have some conversation that really leans more on that, rather than magic being drugs, like rather than magic being the problem. It's more so that Willow has this view on the world and on herself that is really spiraling out of control. And it definitely goes to shit after Tara dies. But that's actually what it is. Which makes the whole magic is drugs situation earlier in the season much weirder, honestly. And I understand that, again, magic is an enabler in order to shortcut things, which is a problem, but magic is not the enabler. I understand that, but the problem is that we had a magic dealer. You know, like we have direct imagery of magic being drugs, of magic being cocaine. We have a magic dealer, and Willow goes and does magic, and then she loses her mind, and she's like, ugh, and it's this thing of like, what are we like? To me, it loses me a little bit in that angle, because I think that ultimately the story is good. How we got there is a little bit weird. It's a little bit iffy. It's losing me a little bit in the middle, because I just see the imagery and I think that is an extreme oversimplification of the real issue. The fact that Willow is doing drugs and the drugs is magic, I look at that and I go like, you're losing me a little bit here, dog. Like, you're really losing me. It's like, I was with you, and I think I will be with you near the end, and I was. Like, when the story ended, I thought it was pretty good. But in the middle, I was like, why is this the comparison? Because I don't really see it very much, honestly, to be honest with you. Because the issue is not the substance. The issue is Willow. And making substance the problem is kind of giving Willow some kind of out of guilt. And I feel like that might be it. Is that I like flawed characters that go through shit. And that's definitely the case with Buffy, and that's definitely the case with Willow in this season. And for everybody else too. But I feel like shifting the blame to the substance rather than Willow herself is like almost undermining your own story. Because the problem is not the substance. The problem is not the magic. The problem is Willow. And at the end, it feels like it is acknowledging that the problem is Willow. Because like Willow has all of these things that she needs to change to understand. And ultimately what actually makes her change is the fact that like it is actually doing magic. Because Willow at the end, she does more magic out of Giles. And then surprise, this was a magic that made you feel empathy towards the world. And that is what solved the problem. Because the problem wasn't the magic itself. The problem is the fact that Willow didn't really see the world as something that mattered at all. Because she was too busy thinking about herself and her own feelings. And the fact that you get the final thing that actually saves the day is something that actually grounds her back to the world, makes her care about the world and feel the same things that the world is feeling. And then having somebody who becomes like the face of the world in Xander, that is what actually saves the day. It's never the magic being drugs thing. It's just the fact that Willow couldn't get over herself. Really. That's really the problem. That she was like, whatever I do is the thing that matters the most. And I don't have to deal with consequences with anything if I can help it. But now at the end, when she actually gets to experience what it's like for the world to matter as well, rather than just herself, now that is what solves the problem. That is what saves the day. That is what de-escalates Willow and makes Willow actually come back to us. It's not the magic. It's never the magic. It wasn't the drugs. It was Willow's person that was it. The magic's maybe an enabler. I'm not gonna say it's not, but to actually just focus on that rather than focus on actually helping Willow on like a more like emotional sense, or like trying to understand Willow more, like that is something where I was a little bit lost. And maybe that is like a shortcoming of everyone else in the show. I think that it is, but I don't know if that is intentional, because it felt like the show very intentionally wanted to shift the blame towards the drugs, to magic being drugs. And I was watching that and I was like, I don't think that's the problem. I think we should be giving Willow a lot more shit than we did, because Willow needs to change. And I was right, because then the problem explodes at the end, and it's because Willow didn't change. You know, the way that Willow saw things didn't change. So the moment that there is one thing that goes wrong, very wrong, a big thing, Tara dies, then everything goes to shit again. And that's because we haven't really dealt with the fundamental issue, which is Willow, you know? And I don't know how intentional that was from the show to actually like do that. in a way that made sense, like in a way that was intentional versus just they were just trying to shift the blame to like magic being drugs. I don't know, but I feel like this is a place in which halfway through the storyline of Willow, I was like, I don't know if I agree with this whole magic drugs thing. So yeah, that's something that's worth mentioning probably here. Let's talk about Xander Harris.
Hey, black-eyed girl.
And I will say this. This is the first thing that I am recording after the unfortunate news that Nicholas Brandon, the actor that played Xander, unfortunately passed away. I didn't read into any further information on that. I did see that apparently his death was ruled to be natural causes. I don't know if there was any new developments about that, but he was like 54 or like 56. I don't know, but he was young. This is the second like young Buffy actor who has passed that we have seen in just the recent times, and it feels wrong. It feels sad, and I don't know what to say about that, really. Like, in the same way that after Michelle Trachtenberg passed away, and I talked about it for a second, like, I'm going to approach it in the same way, and it's not like, I don't think there's much I can say because I didn't know Nicholas Brandon personally, and I don't want to intrude into the room being like, you know, I feel really sad that this guy that I really cared about died, because, like, the truth is that I didn't know him. And the people that are suffering the most probably are the people that actually did know him personally. So my heart goes out to them, to anyone who knew him personally, family, friends, etc. And I suppose anyone who has been like a big fan of this show for years and years, for like decades at this point, maybe you felt a connection that probably really hurts you, and you're probably going through a lot right now, and I'm really sorry if that is what you're going through right now. I'm not there with you because I've only been here for a couple years. I still feel sad about it. Like, I do. I'm just not there with anyone else, and definitely not with the families of people who knew him. That's something that sucks, makes me sad, and I don't wanna say much because I don't want it to make it about me, you know. So that's kind of where I'm coming at this whole thing. I just felt like I needed to say something because, like, it would not feel good to start talking about Xander after knowing these news that just happened. It was just like earlier this week, and you guys who are watching this, you're gonna be watching this like a month later, so I'm sorry, but this is the first thing I'm recording after it happened, and I'm really sorry for really everybody who's feeling awful after it, because yeah, it's sad whenever people pass away like that, especially so young, you know. Like it feels like it's not fair. Really does. And I guess if you want to leave a comment below talking about, like, I don't know, if you like knew him, like if you actually got to meet him at some convention or something, or like you had a personal experience where you knew the guy, like, it would be cool to know that. It would be cool to like actually know a little bit more about Nicholas Brandon than I do, which is nothing, you know. So if you want to leave a comment telling me about any stories about that, or anything that like personally feels close to you, you can let me know. It'd be nice to hear about that. I asked people the same thing about like Michelle Trachtenberg when she passed away. So I feel like it would be nice to like hear like real stories, because like Nicholas Brandon was not Xander, you know, like he played Xander, but Nicholas Brandon was a real person in the world. Xander isn't. Xander is a fictional character. So I cannot really say that I feel that affected by it because I just didn't know the guy. But it would be nice to get to know him. You know, like now, if there's any stories to be heard about that, I would like to know them now. So I guess leave me a comment below if that is something that you know about that happened to you or something. Like that would be cool to know. That's something that I would enjoy. That's it. Because I don't think there's much else I can say about this. It just makes me feel sad. So, okay. Now that I have said that, I guess we can move on to Xander, the character. I really like Xander this season. And that's very interesting because I feel like a lot of people don't. Because the big thing that Xander does this season is that Xander leaves Anya at the altar. Like honestly, like that is the big thing that Xander goes through. Because like Xander doesn't really go through much until that happens. And I think that it works because for me, the character of Xander, I've said this extensively already, but the character of Xander makes perfect sense that he would leave Anya at the altar. It makes perfect sense to me. It would make less sense if he didn't. Because like when you see Xander and you see the fucked up like upbringing that he had and the fucked up like family relationships that he had, and like it's not just like, oh, your dad was bad. It's this thing of like, you have to understand that when you grow up under circumstances like that, the entire view that you have upon the world is weird, is different, is bad, honestly. Because the relationships that you had near you were all toxic, were all unhealthy, and now you have that to carry into the world. And honestly, the fact that Xander managed to have this like diehard friends that really care in Buffy and Willow is honestly like remarkably well adjusted. Like it's amazing that Xander was able to succeed as much as he had in life, socially speaking, because of the fucked up household he comes from. I think it's because of Willow. It's because Willow and Xander have been friends since they were very little. And Willow became like Xander's like, Willow and probably Willow's family too. I remember like there was a moment in which like, I don't know, it's like a comment that Xander made at one point of talking about like Willow's mom or whatever, of like, you know, she always made like cookies or whatever, something like that. It's this thing of like, you get the feeling that Xander lived through Willow almost. Through meeting Willow and being Willow's friend, Xander was able to have some kind of like healthy relationship that he didn't get anywhere else. So with that said, moving forward into the future, he is an adult now. He has a job. He has to care. He has to worry about like a living place, you know, about his like apartment. He has to worry about money. And now he has to worry about his girlfriend and then later fiancée and then marrying her. And he has to worry about the wedding. He has to worry about like all the families. And it's this thing of like, it's a lot for a guy who has never solved the stuff that is wrong with him. And the stuff that is wrong with him is that he just doesn't see himself as a very good person. He doesn't. Because he sees himself as an extension of his parents, specifically an extension of his dad. Because you have to remember, like, the only family that he has ever like seen directly, that he has seen like the everyday life of, because like maybe he went and hung out with Willow and stayed over her house like for sleepovers and stuff. So like, yeah, he does have that image of like what is the like Rosenberg household, but he doesn't live there, you know, he like visits there. The household in which he lives in, which becomes like the basis for your understanding of everything, is incredibly fucked up. It's so bad. And that means that when Xander thinks about, I am going to start a life with Anya, I am going to share a household with Anya, like this is what we're going to be, he only sees a future in which he becomes his dad. He only sees a future in which he is going to make Anya's life miserable, in that he is going to hurt Anya, because he cannot imagine a future in which that is not the case. And that is something that is extremely tragic. And it's this thing of like, I saw some people, I did read the comment section for this video a little bit. I did see some people that were like, I fucking hate Xander. Fuck this dude. Fuck what he did to Anya. He's such an abusive piece of shit to wait until the last moment and then go like, no, I'm not gonna do it. What a manipulative asshole. And I'm sitting here thinking like, you don't get it. Like, I'm sorry towards that person. Because I think it was like one person. Maybe there were more. But that's the one that I remember in my head. And I'm really sorry to that person for singling you out. But like, I really feel like you just don't get that. Because there was that moment in which like Anya was like, do you hate me? And Xander is like, it's not you I hate. And maybe you thought that he meant his parents. He didn't. He hates himself. Because Xander sees himself as an extension of a rotten family. He sees himself as somebody who is going to perpetuate the bullshit that he had to live through. And he doesn't want to do that to another person. He doesn't want to do that to Anya. Because he loves Anya. Because he cares about Anya. And maybe you were never in a situation similar to this, but I have, in which and I don't mean a marriage, by the way. I don't mean leaving someone at the altar, but I mean, being in a situation in which you feel like your presence is the worst thing that you could bring about someone. And your best option is to run away. Your best option is to just say, like, that person would be happier if I wasn't here. So I'm just gonna leave. Only to find out later that that person actually wanted you to be there. And you hurt them in leaving. But it's a feeling that is impossible to get over, because this is the really sad thing to say. Even after you find out that that person wanted you to be there and that you hurt them by leaving, your reaction is to think, well, they're wrong. They're wrong for feeling that way, because clearly the best thing would be for me to not be here. If they think that they want me around, well, they're mistaken, because it's easier to assume that the other person is wrong for wanting you around, for being happy around you, than to accept that you are not a bad person. Than to assume that you're not rotten. And that is a very depressing thing to say, but it's something that I have felt before. And it's something that when Xander was going through that, when I saw that, I was like, that's the realest shit in the world. And it is an extremely high drama moment of like leaving someone at the altar. You know, like that is something that is so... It's such a awful moment for Anya. It has to be so traumatic. And it is. Like, we can see how hurt Anya is after that, and she cannot bring herself to forgive Xander. And I get that. And I don't want her to. In the final episode, there was a moment in which I felt like Anya said, like, Giles told Anya that Xander saved the day, and Anya was like, Xander did? And it was a feeling that in that moment I felt like, oh, if Anya feels like, oh, maybe Xander is such a good guy after all, I'm going to go back to him. Like, I felt like if that's the direction things are going to go, I wouldn't like that. And it's because that would be taking away from Anya's feelings that became so hostile, honestly, towards Xander after leaving her at the altar. And I think that the relationship now is one that can never be repaired on like a romantic sense, because I think that sometimes you have such a strong feeling, such a strong reaction in your feelings that you cannot bring yourself to do something that you would want to do otherwise. And I feel like Anya would not be able to go back to Xander. Even if she forgives Xander, even if she understands Xander, even if you guys can be friends now, I don't think that she could go back to being with Xander. Like, that's the way I see Anya. But enough of that. Let's go back to Xander for a second, because we're talking about Xander here. The moment in which I saw that happen, I understood perfectly why it happened, and I feel so sad. I feel so sad because I understood the tragedy of it all, because both of these people want to be together. And it would be better if they were. It would be healthier if they talked about this and they were able to understand that there's a lot of baggage here that needs to be fixed, that needs to be repaired on some level, and taking the necessary steps to actually do your best to be able to remedy that would have to come through talking to your significant other and being like, I have this thing going on. This is how I feel. This is how I see myself. This is what I think is going to happen. And then your significant other can actually be your support. Because Xander does need support. This is something that is very difficult to navigate without any support whatsoever. So he does need some support. And I know that Anya would be his support if this is something that both of them addressed. They didn't. Because Xander never took the first step in recognizing that this is something that I have to get better about. And he never really understood that this is something that I need to work on. And so he didn't tell Anya about it. So then Anya just didn't know. And so tragedy happens. Because you guys didn't fix your shit, specifically Xander. And I do want to clarify that it is not Anya's responsibility to be Xander's support if she doesn't want to be. But I do think that she would want to be, provided this is something that we can actually communicate about. And we did so before the wedding, which didn't happen. After the wedding, even if Xander were to tell Anya everything, Anya would be like, I don't want to hear it. Anya would be like, I'm sorry, even if I understand that, I'm sorry about that for you, but what you did to me is honestly equally as dramatic. So it's not a situation in which I think that they could go back together. That's what I feel. That's what I feel about the relationship. I'm talking a lot about Anya, and the reason why is because I think that their storyline between Xander and Anya is kind of the character storyline for them, both of them, right? Like, I don't think Xander individually I don't think there's much I can say about Xander individually if it's not also part of Anya, because the big thing that happened with Xander was the wedding, or lack thereof. But for Anya here, Anya becomes the owner of the magic shop for the season. We get to see her thrive. She loves capitalism. She's starting to do great. But mostly what she cares about the most is, I want to marry Xander. And it takes a little bit before we get there, because they hadn't announced people that they were going to marry. Because they felt it would be weird, because Buffy was dead and all, and everybody's still like mourning. So they felt it would be weird to announce people that. And Anya felt impatient. Anya felt like, well, when are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? Like, Anya felt extremely like, we need to do this. We need to do this wedding thing. Like, I can't wait anymore. I have to do it. And Xander felt like, I need to be a little more tactful with that. But at the same time, Xander, on some level, he felt uncertain. And the uncertainty would come later. For real. But you have to imagine that on some level, Xander felt uncertain about it. Even though he's the one that said, let's get married. And then later in the season, a couple episodes in, Xander is the one that goes, hey, everybody, we're going to get married. Like, he's the one that announces it to people. And Anya is very happy about it. And I read somebody who said, like, it was Xander the one that announced it. It was Xander the one that said, let's get married. And then he's the one that walks away. And it's like, yeah, because you don't understand how trauma works. Like that's it. Because, like, in that moment, in the moment that Xander said, oh, we're going to get married, I remember Xander was, like, in the shop. And he was just, like, looking at Anya doing whatever bullshit she was doing at, like, the cash register. And it was this thing in which Xander was seeing, like, the reality of Anya. Just, like, the little things that Anya does. It was the fundamental moment of, like, this is who Anya is as a person. And I'm looking at that. I'm looking at all the little things that she's doing. And I'm like, I love that woman. And in that moment, it becomes the resolve of, like, announcing it. Of, like, we're going to marry. Because in that moment, I fully believe that Xander looked at Anya and he was like, I love that person with all my heart. We're going to do it, right? I fully believe that. But the problem is that life doesn't work in like a, I say thing happens. I do thing happens. It's like you can say something and then at a different time, you can regret it. Or you can say something and at a different time, you can change your mind. Or you can say something and then at a different time, your emotions get the better of you and you run away. Because there's a lot of unresolved childhood trauma that you haven't figured out yet. That's how life works. I'm sorry. But that is the reality of things. Life is not super easy. But with Anya specifically, like, there's that episode that they're all figuring out, like, the family situation. And they're both, like, dealing with it so... They're failing to deal with it, but they're putting up with so much of the preparation that comes with the wedding. But the reason why they're putting up with it is because they want it to go through. And when the wedding is about to happen, when, like, you see Anya and you want Anya to be happy, you do. And you can tell that this is the most important thing in the world to Anya. You can tell. The main thing that Anya has been about the entire time, ever since she came back at the end of season 3, has been about being with Xander. So now that she is finally going to marry Xander, she is living her dream, and then all of her dreams are shattered when Xander runs away. And it's a moment of, like, feeling so sad for Anya. Because it's a level of tragedy of, like, oh my god, like, you really wanted this girl to get her dream and she didn't. And because Anya can't shut up about it, you know how much it mattered to her. You really know. Which is why when later she comes back and she's so bitter towards Xander. First of all, she goes back to being a vengeance demon. She immediately just decides, I'm going to be a vengeance demon again. So it's one of those things, she's hurt and she's like, fuck it, I want vengeance. I will bring vengeance. I'm going to become the embodiment of vengeance again. And then she goes and tries to do that to Xander, forgetting that she doesn't get to do that. Somebody has to wish for it to happen. And she doesn't get her vengeance on Xander the traditional way, but she does get her vengeance on Xander in a different way, in that she banged Spike and then Xander was hurt as a result of it because he saw it happen through some weird, convoluted bullshit because the 3 losers had set up cameras and stuff. And what's interesting and complex about this, and I kind of like it, is that like Xander sees that and he immediately reacts. He immediately goes and it's like, I'm gonna kill Spike. Fuck that dude. Why are you fucking Spike? Why are you sleeping with this asshole? And it's this thing of like, again, this I read another comment. I'm sorry, I read the comments sometimes. There was like, it's so hypocritical of Xander to say that to Anya as if, like, you guys broke up. Like, you guys are not together anymore. She can do whatever she wants. And it's like, yes, that is true. But at the same time, Xander never stopped caring about Anya. In fact, what he did under the delusion that he was doing the best thing for Anya. That is where that comes from. Xander never at any point stopped caring about Anya, and never at any point he stopped loving Anya. Even if you might think otherwise because of what happened on paper, when you look at the character, you know what they're about, you know where all of the problems come from, Xander never stopped loving Anya. So when he saw that, he felt a level of vitriol and betrayal that would be comparable to Anya cheating on him. And yes, I don't think Xander has a ground to stand on when he's like slut-shaming Anya for sleeping with Spike. I don't think Xander has any ground to stand on when he does that. But I also think that Xander is like one of the most emotional characters in the whole show. So of course he was going to react that way. Of course he was going to react that way. He's Xander. He is emotional about anything that happens. Like, I don't know, you're walking through the street and sometimes like a bird shits on you. And some people's reaction is to be like, Xander's reaction would be like, oh, of course, a bitch shit on me. Fuck my life. Everything sucks. God damn. Oh. And then he'll make a joke about it. But you can see like the emotional frustration that he would be in when the bird shits on him. Like that's it. It's that Xander is an emotional guy and he will always, like, his emotion always just poured out of him. So in that moment, of course, he's gonna be like, fuck you, you're slept with Spike. I don't think he's right in feeling that way. And I think that that is something that he realized later. But in the moment, he doesn't. In the moment, he's just reacting. You know, Xander is the OG reactor in Buffy. Which is why I actually don't want them to go back together. I don't want Xander and Anya to go back together. I don't. Because I think that Xander hurt Anya in a way in which I don't think Anya could plausibly recover to a degree in which she would want to be with him again. I think that they could be friends again after some working through issues. They could like hang out again, maybe. But I don't think they could be ever as intimate as they once were. Because, and again, this is something I understand, sometimes even if you really care about a person and you really like a person and you really, really like them, you love them, you care for them, sometimes there is like an emotional pang in you that makes you unable to emotionally approach that person as much as maybe you once did. Because the last time you did that, you experienced the worst pain of your life. And even if logically you know that this person is awesome and you love them and you really care for them, your body won't allow you to emotionally be at the point where you could connect with that person like that again. It's almost like an instinctual like self-preservation thing of like, my body will not allow me to feel the way that I once felt. Because the last time that happened, I almost died. So I can't do that again. You know? Even if your brain is like, I am cool with this person now, your heart is like, we're not doing that. And that's what I feel Anya is probably going to be at. Or that's where I feel Anya should be at. Even if they become friends again and they can hang out, I think that that's where Anya's going to be at. Because that's something that I feel is very real when it comes to the way people work. I think that there's nothing wrong with Anya having slept with Spike. Because Anya can do whatever the fuck she wants. Like that's how I feel. So I'm not going to be on Xander's side on that one when he's reacting. I understand why he's acting out in the way that he's acting out. Because that's just the way Xander works. But I don't think he has any ground to stand on when he says that. And I do think that Anya can just fuck Spike if she just wants to fuck Spike. But it is also one of those things that is just like fucking weird. Because it's one of the things that happen just for maximum drama, honestly. Because it's like Anya and Spike never interacted in a way that would make you think that like, oh, they can have a thing. Ever happen. It never ever happened. And the only reason why they're doing this is because they're both having this like, oh, we just got our feelings hurt because we were broken up to kind of shit. So they're both like, okay, let's fucking get wasted. So it's like Anya and Spike just happen to be in the same place because Spike was like, oh, I need something to forget love, to not deal with the pain. They get drunk. The loser trio just happened to install a bunch of cameras. Willow just happened to hack into the cameras that they didn't know were even existed, just to see the moment in which Anya and Spike are drinking, and then they start fucking. And then Xander walks in the moment in which they are seeing that Anya and Spike are fucking on screen, that they tapped into, that they didn't know that they were tapping into because they had set up, the other idiots had set up cameras there to look at. It's like, again, the way that the season 6 works is just like so much shit happens, and it's just like difficult to it's like difficult to imagine it happening in the real world. But like, I guess it could happen theoretically, but it's just like so many things that just fall in the specific way in order to make the situation as worse as it could possibly be. Now, I think that Anya, I would like to see a version of Anya that doesn't actually have to live as somebody who just cares about Xander all the time. Because like that was her thing. It's that she wanted to be with Xander. And it's not that she cared about Xander. It's that she wanted to be with Xander, and that came from her own desire, you know? Like there's a difference between like caring a lot about another person's desire versus what you want. And what Anya wanted was like, I want Xander. And then that didn't work. So I'm really thinking here that it would be interesting to see in what direction does Anya go now that didn't work out, that the Xander stuff didn't work out. I don't want them to get back together. I don't know if it will happen or not, but if they don't, then I have to wonder what exactly is going to happen with Anya. Okay, I'm going to be real with y'all. So I just ran out of hard drive space while I was talking about Anya there. So I think I'm going to have to start really making this shit go faster here. I'm like 3-4 characters in, and it's been like almost 2 hours. So okay, let's start going a little faster here. What I will say about Anya is that I'm really interested into where she was going to go now if she doesn't go back to Xander, which I would prefer, because I would like to see Anya as her own individual in the world. And I hope that it's not just capitalism jokes. You know, I hope she's not just like, I'm greedy and I like making money and that's it. It would be nice if Anya could actually develop further than just that bit. As for Xander, it would be nice if boy got his shit together. You know, it would be nice if he actually understood that this is some of the issues that he has, and he has to know about them now. Like by now he has to like figure that out. And I hope that he can have some support from his friends, from Buffy and Willow. Like it would be nice if they could be there for him. And he can like grow a better person with deeper understanding of himself, and somebody who accepts himself enough to be able to accept that other people can be happy with you, because that is really the problem here. Okay, more characters. Let's talk about Tara.
Things fall apart. They fall apart so hard. You can't ever put them back the way they were.
So Tara dies. Okay. The thing about Tara is that I feel like Tara, we don't really spend time in the shoes of Tara. Tara is mostly utilized as a character that exists in other people's journeys. And that is something that I take issue with, because I like Tara more than I like any of these other fools. But Tara is mostly utilized in order to be able to make like a Willow's story more fucked up. She also exists in Buffy's story for Buffy to be able to talk to Tara and not feel judged because she didn't want to go to Willow. Like Tara exists on a realm in which she's not your closest friend, but she's someone that you can trust and she's very nice. So you go to Tara. Tara is someone that people want, like Willow wants to be with Tara, but ultimately, Tara doesn't really have much of her own story going on in this season, and I would have liked to see if what that would be like. I would like to see that. I like Tara a lot, but we don't get that. Tara is mostly left as a supporting character for everybody else. Tara does take issue with what's going on with Willow, but in doing so, she's actually trying to make Willow better. You know, she's trying to help Willow as well, because this is an issue that Willow has. Of course, it's also Tara just drawing a line in the fucking sand and being like, I can't do this. You know, like, you can't do this to me, which is fair. Absolutely fair. Then Tara dies, and the thing is that I can't really say much about Tara because Tara herself doesn't really do much. There's a number of episodes in which she's not even in them. She just left. There's not much else I can say about Tara here, which is tragic because like Tara just dies and that's it. Like they don't even spend any time mourning her. Maybe we're gonna get that next season, but right now it just feels like Tara was here and now she's not, and that's it. Like we don't do anything beyond that, and I wish we did. I really do wish we did. Like I'm tired of having to feel about like a certain way about Willow, like trying to figure out what's going on with Willow. I'm like, girl, I just want to mourn Tara. I just want to spend an episode in, like the body, but Tara, you know, just like the entire episode, we just sit here feeling bad about what happened to Tara, but instead we don't get that. Instead, Tara once again becomes fuel in order to tell Willow's spiraling down story. So I wish we had gotten more Tara. That's what I will say. Because Tara remains like my favorite character in the past like couple years. I still think that Faith is my like overall favorite character in the entirety of Buffy, but Tara's second for sure. There's no competition there. It's those two and nobody else. Hi, what's up? I am inserting a little bit here into the recording that I did a couple days ago for Tara as well as Spike. You're gonna see that at the end. But there's a couple things I wanted to add that I didn't get to mention before because I forgot, or I was dealing with low hard drive space, so I was kind of rushing through things. But there's a couple things I want to add. Let me start with Tara here. I did mention that Tara doesn't really get to do much this season. She takes a role in which things happen to her or around her, and she becomes something that other characters think about or feel about rather than somebody who we actually follow and we worry about what happens to Tara. Because for the most part, we're interested in what happens to Buffy or what happens to Willow, but we're not actually thinking about Tara and what happens to Tara herself until she fucking dies. And even then, after she dies, we mostly just focus on Willow spiraling down rather than grieving about Tara. But something I do like about Tara's death, I mean, I don't like that she died, but something I do like about it, and this is something that I started thinking about because somebody left a comment, and I think I mentioned this in a previous recording. Somebody left me a comment that was like, Tara's death is written as if the show is like betraying your trust, almost. I don't know if that's true. I understand why you would make that idea in your mind, because it does feel that way. But I don't know if that was intentional. But something that I do like about her death, because I thought about it and I was like, what is it about her death that makes it different from some kind of different death? And the answer is that it just kind of happens. Tara's death is, like this person pointed out, it feels like the show is betraying your trust, but the reason why it feels that way is because it just kind of happens. There is no building up to it. We don't even spend time grieving on it. It just happens, and there she goes. And something I actually really like about that is that in this season, in order to really drive the point of what kind of this season statement is going for, or not the season statement, but like the season problem is going for. And the problem is the world sucks, you know, like living in the world just hurts and it sucks and everything's bad all the time. There's no saving it. The main antagonist turns out to be your best friend who on a fit of despair, she decides, I'm gonna kill everyone and then myself. Like, I'm just gonna destroy the world because that would be preferable than living in it. That is literally what happens on the final episode. But the reason why that works for me and the reason why that connects to Tara's death is that Tara's death, again, it just happened. But it's not just that it happened in the way that it was taken care of, but it also just happened in the sense that within the universe of the show, Warren didn't show up to kill Tara. He didn't even try to kill Tara. I don't even know why he pulled the trigger randomly in the air that one time. It felt like he even didn't realize it, because he also didn't realize that Tara had died and that he had a witch on his ass following him. He had people to tell him, yeah, this is what's going on and you're kind of cooked. Like, he didn't even know that. They were like, oh, you killed somebody. And it's like, wait, I didn't kill anybody. Buffy's alive. And it's like, oh, you fucked up, boy. Like, you don't even know what you did. And that's something that I actually really, really like. It's something that I really, really enjoy about how Tara's death happened, because it almost feels like fate. And we know fate is real in the world of Buffy, but I'm just saying that it almost feels like this is something that would have only happened through like a ridiculous like set of circumstances, but this was always going to be the case. It's like, I don't fucking know. Like, you know, like those movies like Final Destination, and they didn't do that, but it reminds me of that because like I'm looking at the way Tara dies and I'm like, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. Because again, I kept thinking about it, I kept looking at it, and like Tara is not at an angle in which that bullet would have ever hit her. She wasn't with her back to the wall, literally. She was like removed from it. Warren wouldn't have had like a clear shot on like a second floor, which is where she was, unless she had been literally at the window in order to hit her at the heart. The angle wouldn't have worked. It doesn't make any sense unless the like bullet like ricochet, or unless Warren is secretly Whole Horse from JoJo and he can curve the bullet at will. Like there is no sense. It was like a heart-seeking bullet. And it's also one of those things where like, again, it's ridiculous set of circumstances because like you see gunfire all the time at all times, and the fact that like you would fire one stray bullet that would just happen to hit somebody in the heart and that would just be it, like that's crazy. That's a crazy 1 in a billion kind of chance, and especially when we look at like the evidence of like how did that happen, and it's like there's no sense why it would have happened. And I don't think the show is interested in exploring why, like how would that happen, like in the exact like logistics of it, because it doesn't matter. What matters is that Tara just dies. Like, that's it. Which does add, like, an element of a feeling of, like, a cosmic force that just wanted Tara dead. Which is true. It's called the writing team. They just wanted her dead because the story of Willow spiraling down was very juicy and it was very cleverly set up, and this was always the way it was going to be. Because like looking at the season as a whole, it's clear to me that this is where we're going to go, to the point that like my editor and I called it. We just didn't call the specific of Tara dying, but we called the fact that Willow was going to spiral down so hard and she was going to like go brutal on the 3 idiots who don't deserve it because they're idiots. Warren did at the end of the day, but we didn't know that. We didn't know any of the specifics of what was going to happen, but it's something that we can kind of call because it's perfectly set up. And then you kind of forget about it because Willow starts doing better. She's improving. She's okay. Like Willow starts to become normal again, and she starts to become like a good person and not somebody who's like has issues and is extremely self-centered and stuff. And then Tara dies, and then everything gets thrown out the window and we just revert back worse than we ever were. And that is really cleverly set up. Like, I really like that. But that also tells me that the story is one in which Tara was always going to die. There's like no version of this season in which Tara doesn't die. Which is why I'm gonna say this. And you're gonna be crazy that I said this, considering that I'm like Tara's #1 fan. Tara's death is something that I'm not upset about, and I think it's okay. I actually like it. I like it in terms of like the storytelling of the season, because I think it makes perfect sense that this is the way it was going to be. And what ended up happening as a result, I also think it makes perfect sense. And Tara's death, while bullshit, does feel exactly thematically on par with what the season wanted to do. And it resulted exactly in what the season wanted to push, which is this idea of like, the world sucks. Like, everything sucks. Like, when we say the world, we can refer to like literally physically the world, but also just like the universe. Like, everything about life just kind of sucks. Because sometimes some loser just fires a straight bullet and it just kills your girlfriend. And what are you gonna do? You know, it's this like extreme set of circumstances where like you can blame Warren for it, but that's kind of why we were trying to kind of stop Willow from murdering Warren and then Jonathan and then Andrew. And it's that they didn't really intend to do that. Warren deserved it because 1, he was an asshole, 2, he was a killer, and 3, he did show up with the intent of killing Buffy. Like, Warren was a piece of shit, so I don't feel bad about the fact that he died. But whenever we're tracking like Jonathan and Andrew, we're looking at them and it's like they never had the desire, the intent to actually kill somebody. And in fact, they were not really like Andrew was associated with like the first murder in the sense that like Jonathan as well, they covered it, but then Jonathan feels like he actively wanted to repent as well as the other people. Andrew didn't, but ultimately they were not on the level of Warren, who actively wanted to kill somebody and constantly continued to try to do so. So like, why are we hunting them down to try and kill them? And the answer is because like Willow is like done. She's done with everything. She's done with them. She's done with the world. She's done with herself. And ultimately, like the main like argument that we have, I think it's on the second to last episode, is that Buffy and Willow have this thing in which like Buffy tries to convince Willow that like, you know, you can live in the world and it's okay instead of giving up on it. And Willow has this thing of like, oh, you're gonna lecture me about that? We know that you wish you were rather be dead than be here anymore, which is kind of true. And that's why I think it works so well. And it's because earlier in the season, Buffy was somebody who just didn't want to be here. And it took her the entire journey of the season to actually get to a point in which she can actually confront her friend who's going through the same, albeit in a more extreme fashion. But that is the topic of the season. That is the theme of the season. That's something I actually really enjoy. And I think Sarah becomes kind of a symbol for it. Because the fact that Tara dies in the manner that she dies is bullshit, but I don't think it's bullshit from the writing team, like on purpose, just to like make you hurt. I think that adding her in the intro probably was just a preemptive twist of the knife, just because they were one assholes and two wanted to have fun with it. But I also think that it's not bullshit on that level. I think it's bullshit on the level that the world feels bullshit. Because that is the conflict that the season is really trying to focus on. It's the idea that sometimes life just sucks. And you just kind of have to deal with that. And sometimes you can deal with it. Sometimes you just go and decide, I'm going to kill everybody. You know, like sometimes life gets you to that level. And that is what we're following here with Buffy and Willow. And I think that Tara's death then becomes very symbolic of that. I think it becomes a perfect reason for that to be what we explore. Not even explore, but just like the ensuing incident that results in like the actual full-on confrontation of that problem. So like, I actually don't really mind that she died. I mean, I do in the sense that I want to always see more Tara. Like, in my ideal world, Tara would come back as a ghost. And I would just keep following Tara, but now she's a ghost. But, like, I don't actually mind that she died, is, I guess, the point. Because I even though her death feels bullshit, I don't think it's bullshit in the sense that, like, you know, like, you just kind of throw the book and you're like, fuck this thing, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, no, it does make sense, actually. And I do like what they're doing with it. So it makes, because ultimately, you have to remind yourself, and well, I have to remind myself because this is the way I do things, but characters are tools in order to tell a story. That is what they are. They are not real people. That is the approach that I'm going for. Characters are not real people, so I shouldn't feel, you know, like you have to be nice to them or whatever. It's like, no, they are tools to tell a story. You can get attached to those tools. You can get attached to these people that are made up, and I have, which is why I was really struggling when I watched Seeing Red. It's actually quite a funny reaction because for like the next half an hour after I watched that episode, my brain was short-circuiting because I was just so upset about everything. But ultimately, the way I see media is that I think that characters are a way to tell a story. And if the story is good, even if the character death was bullshit within the story, if the story that you're telling with it is good, I'm like, that's fine. Like, the character is actually serving the purpose that they were made for. And I think it works. I think with Tara, it really, really works. The only thing that I feel about Tara is that Tara felt like she had no agency over anything, ever. Which is something that feels kind of sad. Because, like, even in life, her entire world was defined by the people around her making moves rather than Tara herself making moves. The only thing that Tara, like, actively did is that she was like, we're done with Willow after Willow betrayed her trust. Like, that is the only thing that she did actively. Everything else she does kind of a response to other people. And even that thing that she did is a response to what Willow is doing as well. But at the same time, that is kind of the person Tara is. And that is also another part of the tragedy that I'm sure everybody noticed this. But just to point it out, like, Tara's final words is your shirt, which I love deeply because in that moment, she has literally been killed. And her reaction is to see the world see Willow in front of her and comment an expression of worry for her over something that doesn't really matter, which is like, oh, your shirt got stained. Even though she just died, her final words are commenting some kind of like worry or concern over somebody else. Willow, her girlfriend. Rather than, it's like, what is this feeling on my chest? Or what is this lack of feeling on my chest is putting throughout my entire body? It's like, no, it's your shirt. And then she dies. And I think that really is a perfect like showing of what Tara's character is, you know? Tara's a character that really lives for others. She's very giving. She's very forgiving. She is extremely kind. She's extremely worried about other people. And she's just very empathetic as well. Like, Tara is just such a lovely person, which is why it sucks so much that she dies. But I think her death is actually pretty well done. I think that in the overarching story of what the season is going for and what happens in the ensuing episodes after it, I think it works really well. Her final words, I think, are really good. It's bullshit that she died in the manner that she did, but the bullshitness factor of it is actually something that's a positive because it works in order to enhance the theme of the season, which is why sometimes life just sucks. And wouldn't it be better if you just like killed everybody and killed yourself about it, you know? Wouldn't it be better if the world ended rather than continue to live in a world where this bullshit can happen? That is what it's going for. And I think it works because Sarah's death is very bullshit because you kind of on some level, you're not, I assume that most people in the audience are not with Willow whenever she's going on her like bullshit crusade, but you do you certainly have a feeling that is similar to Willow's feeling. In the sense that after I finished watching Seeing Red, I was like, I need to break something. Like I was looking at my desk and I was like, I need to throw something with reckless abandon and not care if it breaks. And I was just like, I need to hit something. I need something to just, like it felt that way because it was so bullshit. But that is part of why it's good, actually. In any other circumstance in which it was just bullshit for the sake of being bullshit, like upsetting for the sake of being upsetting, I don't think that works. But for this season specifically, that is really going for the feeling of like the world is just upsetting sometimes. It's just awful. Bad shit just happens some days. And okay, like when we're going for that story, then I think it works. I really like that. I like that Tara becomes like a symbol of it, because I think it works really well. So I guess that is the final thing I can say about Tara. I do feel like I wish we had more time to grieve her, and maybe we'll do that in season 7 and I'll feel happy about that. But it does feel like Tara, even in life as well as in death, she continues to be kind of a stepping stone for other characters to have more of a spotlight. Like when she was alive, other people were doing things to her and around her. And now that she's dead, we're not even focusing on her death. We're focusing on what Willow is feeling after her death. And I do feel like that is maybe the tragedy of Tara as a character that is not really talked about as much, but maybe that's a little bit intentional. You know, maybe it's a little bit intentional that this character, the character of Tara, could have had like more time. We could have thought and felt about Tara harder than we did because we kind of want to do that, but the show won't let us. And maybe that's part of the tragedy of that as well. That is trying to be told. I'm not sure if that's intentional, but it can be a way to see it. It can be an interpretation. But I think that that's going to be it for Tara. I would like to talk more about Tara next season. That would be nice. If characters continue to like feel and think about her and we can see like cameos of her in like a dream or something, like to really drive home the point that like Tara is still something that we worry, that we think about, that we feel about, to give her importance beyond just like the moment, like I would like that. But yeah, that's what I have to say on Tara. I'm gonna talk about Spike now. See you in like, I don't know, 20 minutes. We have to move to a different character. Let's talk about the dumbest trio.
Okay. Sure. We can do that.
I've already spoken about them before at length, but I'm just gonna say here, I love those three guys as the main antagonists of the season. main antagonists, even if they're not, because they're not, right? Like the main antagonist of the season is like depression. It's like the world is difficult and it sucks and things and bad things happen. Like the main antagonist is not them, is not Willow, is life. It sucks, you know, like that's it. That's season 6. But I love that Warren, Andrew, and Jonathan are not exempt of that universal rule of the fact that like life sucks, because Warren is a fucking psychopath, but like he accidentally kills Katrina and then he starts spiraling down also because like he doubles down on his like psychopathic behavior because he's not exempt of consequences, and that is what ultimately kills him. He thinks that he can just walk into somebody's house and just fucking pull a gun and shoot at people and not have anything happen to him, and he dies in like the most brutal manner because of it. Because he just thought that he was above those consequences of like, I can just do whatever I want, I'll do this, fuck you. And then it's like, no, that's not the way the world works, you know? And kind of the same happens to like Andrew and Jonathan on some level, because both of them were complicit to a degree on a lot of the shit that they did earlier on in the season, and they're on some degree complicit to what happened to Katrina because they were there doing the like mind control shit. Like they were all in on that plan, and it wasn't until Katrina looked at them in the eye, said that this is rape and it's not jokes, that they realized that they're doing something bad, and then Warren killed her, and now they're all stuck there together and they have to deal with it. And it's this thing in which, like, they both deserve some degree of, like, punishment for it. But at the same time, you can see how they didn't want that. You can see how they actively didn't want that to happen. They didn't want those horrible things that they were clearly doing and they were complicit to actually occur. It's just the fact that they're fucking idiots and they didn't think about it that hard. But I love that they are still trapped in there. It's this thing in which, like, life sucks, the reality of things sucks, and we, the main cast, have to deal with that, but so does the, like, main antagonist group. Andrew is so scared about the fact that they kill Katrina at first, and later he kind of gets above that because it's like, oh, I'm above consequences, yeah, I don't have to worry about things, you know? And he loves Warren, I guess. He has a crush on Warren, so he keeps hanging out around Warren. But Jonathan is the one that, like, it really, like, cements the gamut of, like, Warren is a psychopath that doubles down. Andrew is the guy that follows the psychopath because he likes the psychopath and he sees that they are above consequences. So he's like, oh, I'm above consequences too. I can do whatever I want. And then Jonathan is the guy that is like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. But he cannot get out without them killing him or betraying him in any way. Like he has seen how Warren kills in cold blood. So he's now afraid for his life. So what is Jonathan going to do? Like, the closest thing he can do is to help Buffy in the fight when Buffy is fighting them. He tells Buffy, like, he has this thing in his pocket, like, get out of it. And then Buffy, like, actually does so, and that's how they succeed. Because Jonathan actually doesn't want them to keep doing what they're doing. He doesn't want them to succeed. He actually wants punishment for them. Because, like, Jonathan actually, like, comes to a realization of, like, this is bad and I don't like this and I don't want to do this. So he works against it. And it's cool to see like a trio of like antagonists who all have this, like, again, a gamut of emotion of like, we have people on this end, on the middle, and on the other end. And it's all as a result of something that they started off doing together. And then halfway through, they realized that, like, oh, no, not necessarily. But they all land in a different place. They all land in different positions. And that makes them so compelling to me because it makes them such real characters. And this is what I've said about them before. And it's that they're real people. Like, people like Warren exist in the real world. People like Andrew exist in the real world, and people like Jonathan exist in the real world. I have met those people before. Maybe not for long, maybe a little bit. Maybe I just kind of like walked in the same highway as them, but I have definitely met them before. Like, I'm pretty sure we all have met some kind of Jonathan or some kind of Andrew. A type of guy like Warren maybe we haven't seen as much, but I'm pretty sure I've also met a type of guy like Warren. It's just that like Warren doesn't become the worst thing in the world until they have power in order to exert their will, which is something that Warren obtained. He got the money, he got the funding, he started doing all his like gadgets that do honestly some superhero supernatural shit. And like that's what gave him the ability to start doing all the creepy shit. And then when he accidentally killed Katrina, he was like, well, I'm gonna double down on it. So like until that doesn't happen, the type of guy that is like Warren is not immediately a threat. Eventually, for sure, but usually the type of guy that's like Warren doesn't actually do the things that Warren does because there's consequences in the real world. You know, like you go to jail for that shit. So usually that type of guy is just like a weirdo and a creep. But the type of guy that Andrew is the type of guy that finds himself in a situation and they are like, oh, I guess I can keep doing it. Because, you know, we haven't faced any consequences and this is, I like that guy. I'm going to do what my friend does. And then you have a type of guy like Jonathan who's like, I don't want to be here. I'm out. I'm not doing this. But they cannot get out because now they're involved. Like now they are part of the problem. So what are they going to do? And I like that all three of those are very real stances, very real situations to have in the real world. And they happen in the show. And that makes them so compelling to me. I don't have to like them as people necessarily, but God, they're good characters. Like I really like them as a result of that. They have 20 times more nuance and complexity than fucking Glory did. Like, I don't give a fuck about Glory because Glory is just like, I'm an all-powerful, like, God woman. And I don't know, she's like, she was really concerned about her like self-image and she's just like a very, I don't know, selfish and stubborn. And she's kind of funny. She won't shut the fuck up, but like, that's it. Like, there's nothing to that makes it interesting. The only part about it that was interesting is that she shared a body with Ben. But then at the end of the day, that didn't really amounted to too much, I don't think. It did more so on the Ben side than on the Glory side. So I really like those three. I do. Great characters. Hope I never see them again. I don't know. Because like Andrew and Jonathan just fled to Mexico, I guess. And I guess they could do like a bit, like a joke, which we find like we were going to fight like a Mexican demon and Andrew and Jonathan are going to be involved in some way. But like that's it. That's the closest thing I got. But I don't know if I want to see him again because like Jonathan is weird when you think about Superstar. And Andrew is a walking gay joke. And also he kind of sucked. So I don't know how much I want to like have them again in the show, honestly. Okay, I said I needed to move quickly, so I'm gonna start moving quickly here. It's so funny because I spent like half an hour, 40 minutes on like the three main characters, and then I'm just like speed running through everyone else. Okay, let's talk about Dawn.
I could hear her crying out everywhere I went in this town. It was unbearable, and none of you knew.
I like Dawn. I do like Dawn. I've always liked Dawn. I keep liking Dawn more and more. What's amazing about Dawn is that like she's just a child. She's a teenager, and like she wants things that are very teenagery, but it's also like very younger sibling kind of stuff. Because we see how Dawn just wants people to be there for her, and nobody does. Like nobody is giving her the time of anything because like everyone is busy dealing with their own shit, and it makes sense why Dawn is like, I want to be with Spike. Like at the end when they're trying to find like shelter or whatever. Like I like that Dawn is like, I want to be with Spike because like Dawn actually sees Spike as like a caretaker of sorts because that is the role that he played while Buffy was dead. And the same goes for Willow and Tara, but what happens in the season is that, okay, Buffy comes back to life, but Buffy like kind of doesn't care about you or anything. Willow was kind of like your mom for a while, but now she's dealing with her drug shit, and she actually made your other mom, Tara, leave the house. So now you feel betrayed by Tara for leaving, but you also feel betrayed by Willow for hurting Tara enough for Tara to want to leave, even though Tara didn't want to leave. Xander is busy with his own shit, with his wedding to arrange with Anya. So Dawn is left alone. Dawn doesn't have a mom anymore. Like nobody's there for Dawn. And I feel so sad for Dawn, which is why I feel very cathartic when the other demon, the child vengeance demon, it feels very cathartic when she talks to everybody and she's like, I could hear this child crying everywhere I went on this fucking town. And nobody was doing anything, so I had to do something for you. Because nobody paid attention to this fucking kid. And that's on you. And she's right. She's absolutely right. She's fucking right. And what I do want to see is that, like, moving forward, next season, I would like to see people give a shit about Dawn. I would like to see Buffy actually hang out with Dawn and make Dawn like a permanent part of your life. Not just you dealing with your own fucking problems while Dawn sits at home eating pizza or whatever. It's like, no. Let's venture into stuff together, you know? That's something I would like to see. And it seems like that might be kind of the direction where it goes after the ending of season 6. But I would like to see that. I really, really would like to see that. Because the entire season was spent with everybody pushing Dawn away or just ignoring her because everyone is busy with their own stuff. And Dawn is like, so I don't matter. So I don't matter whatsoever. And it feels really sad. Because you feel sad for Dawn. Like, what Dawn wants more than anything is just anyone to give her any crumb of attention. And she doesn't get that. And it's just saying that it is a little childish in nature. But it's also like, the more I grow up, the more I'm like realizing how like fucked up this like thought is. And it's that, you know, when somebody does something and somebody responds with like, oh, they're just doing it for the attention. So that's still real. You know, like that's something that it took me a long time to realize. It's like when somebody actually wants someone to pay attention to them, that's still like a cry for help. Like you still like that person is clearly starved of like some kind of care for somebody else, so much so that they are trying to figure out ways to like cheat the system because they feel like they cannot ask for attention. So they have to ask it in different ways. And it's this thing of like, isn't that a sad thing? Isn't that extremely depressing? That we have somebody who's so lonely and they don't feel like they can ask for that to be helped. So they feel like they have to act out in other ways in order to like get that. And that is, you see it in adults, but it's way more prevalent in like teenagers and children. Shouldn't we teach them that it's okay for them to ask for help? To ask for attention? It's like, I want you to be here. Isn't that like, shouldn't that be a normal thing to say? But we feel like we can't say it. And Dawn certainly didn't feel like she could say it. She turned to stealing stuff. She started becoming a kleptomaniac because she wanted to have things. It makes sense to me, like, because like, one, you want to have goods. You want to have physical things that you keep. Why? Because those physical goods cannot run away from you. They will not leave you. You can keep them and they will stay there, unlike everyone else. That's one thing. The other thing is that she like stole a gift to give Buffy for her birthday. And then Buffy was like, oh, how did you get this? And Dawn was like, and then Buffy like moved on from that. And it's this thing in which like, you can see how the attention that they could have given to Dawn wasn't given to Dawn. And Dawn really wanted that. Like you could see it in her face. And it was something that it's this thing of like, Dawn is stealing things so that people would tell her, oh, thank you, and appreciate her. Because people don't appreciate her by default. So she has to find ways in order to get that somehow. And she resorts to this kind of behavior. And that's sad. That's sad and fucked up. And I will die on this hill defending Dawn. Because I feel so strongly for Dawn. God, like I feel so sad for that child. I hope that Dawn in next season, things are good for Dawn. I really hope so. I really hope that people give her the attention, the care, the love, the presence that she asked for. That she's owed, honestly. Because she doesn't get that. And it would be nice if she did. Like, she doesn't even have friends. Like, she hangs out with her sister's friends. She sometimes is like, oh, I'm gonna go to my friend's place. But then she's like, she's lying about it. You know, she went somewhere else. It's like, yeah, she doesn't really have friends, you know. I like Dawn a lot. I love Dawn. But Dawn also takes like a secondary like step in this season. Like, kind of similar to Tara. In that she becomes like a character that's in the background to like kind of accentuate how everyone else is spiraling out of control or dealing with a lot of shit and ignoring other people. Mostly Buffy, you know, Dawn is here to like really demonstrate how much Buffy has like neglected the world because she's neglecting Dawn. And Dawn is like, I want you here and you're not here right now. And that's something that I really like. I really like the way that Dawn is presented in this season. But I also feel like I wish Dawn had a little bit more agency. Or not agency, but just like anything to do, honestly. Giles.
I know you're all stupid. I should never have abandoned you.
It's very short because he's barely in the season. He's here for the first couple episodes. He's in the first episode and leaves in the first episode, and then he comes back a couple episodes later, and then he leaves again. And the reason why he leaves is that I believe Anthony Stewart Head just wanted to go and hang out with his family in England. So he was like, I don't want to be here. So they were like, okay, you can just leave. And I don't know if he's going to be here for next season or not. That's interesting to me. Maybe he just wanted to have a year off and then he'll come back. So I don't know. We'll see how that develops. But yeah, but the reason why in universe Giles leaves is because Giles feels, at first, he leaves because he cannot bear to be in Sunnydale because everything reminds him of Buffy, and that is something that like he really can move on from because he essentially like lost a daughter, you know, and he feels responsible for that on some level. But he also feels like, you know, he keeps thinking like, I could have done differently. But he's also thinking like, but also she was the Slayer's that young. So it's like you can't fully blame yourself for it, but he's still gonna do it, and he's still gonna feel miserable about it. There was, I think there was something he said of like, there's not a lot of like written text of like the death of like Slayers and what that's like, because like usually watchers don't want to talk about it, you know, like it's something in which like you feel an attachment and they just don't want to write it down because it's too hurtful. So like there's no like Watchers Anonymous of like, you know, like we lost Slayers, let's hang out together and what it's like to lose someone like that. But it's really just like losing a daughter, and he had a hard time moving on from that. So then he decides, I'm gonna go back to England because I want to move on from it, and I can't do it so long as I stay here. But then he comes back immediately afterwards because Willow brings Buffy back to life. And he's so glad that Buffy's back to life, but he's also feeling so upset at Willow for doing what she did. Because it's like, you can't do this. This is against nature. And you can't fuck with the like prime forces of life and death like that. And Willow's like, why can't I? And it's like, well, because you're losing your mind, girly. But yeah, he doesn't have much of a character because he leaves quickly. But the second time, the reason why he leaves, like mostly, is because he sees Buffy as somebody who she's not an active participant in her life, and instead she's relying on Giles to kind of bail her out of situations. And Giles is like, I can't bail you out every time. So Giles decides, I'm gonna give you this like safety net in that it's like you're gonna get money from me, so financially you're gonna be stable for a little bit, but you need to figure out what you want to do with your life. And Giles takes this like stance of like a parent that is just like, you know, in order to make it in the world, you have to, you know, carve your own place for it, and you can't do that so long as I keep carving the place for you. So I'm gonna leave so you can actually have your space to actually spread your wings and do your own thing. I think poetically that works. In reality, I don't think that ever works. It functionally in the world, I don't think that works. And I think that was a mistake. And I do like that when he comes later in the final episode, he's like, yeah, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Because I feel like Giles cares too much in order to be able to like leave like that. And he does. And that's something that's surprising to me, but it makes sense that the actor just didn't want to be here. So they had to write a reasoning, but I just don't think the reasoning was very good. Because the reason of, you know, like, I'm just in the way of your development, so I'm just going to leave you so you can do your own thing by yourself because that's going to be better for you. I don't know if Giles is the type of guy that would do that. Like, he did, so I can't say that he wouldn't, but consistently with what I've seen before, I don't think that he would have. So to me, that's one of the parts in which I look at it and I'm like, I don't know if that's correct. But then I feel better about it later because he comes back in the final episode, which is awesome. And he's like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. You know, like that was a mistake. I should have stayed. And I feel like, yeah, like that was a mistake. I thought that was a mistake when you did it the first time. And I'm noticing that it's a mistake right now at the end, like for sure. And he's also noticing it. He's like, yeah, everything went to shit after I left. Like these fucking children, like I thought that they would be okay without me and they weren't. So I guess I have to be here. And I'm like, yes, you do. None of these children have parents. Like none of them. Buffy lost her parents, lost her mom, and her dad sucks. He's not here. Xander has abusive parents, so he doesn't have parents. Willow's parents are, I don't know, okay or not, but like we never hear about them, so she might as well not have them. Anya is a former demon, so she also doesn't have parents. Like, no one here has parents. Like, Giles has to be a father figure to every single person in this goddamn show. So like the fact that he leaves and everything spirals out of control immediately is this thing of like, yeah, you should have been here, dude. Like people need you, like desperately. So it's like, okay. I do like Giles. I never stop liking Giles. And I do like that he comes in later with this like Trojan horse kind of plan. That's really cool. I like that he realizes his mistakes. But I also like that he's showing concern for what happened. It's all very good. I really like it. Ultimately, there's not much to say because he wasn't here for most of the season. But okay. Is there anything else I can talk about before I move on to the big one? Anything else? Anyone? Am I forgetting anyone? Let's talk about Spike.
Get nice and comfy, Slayer. I'll be back.
Here's the thing about Spike. I'm gonna be fully honest with you. I haven't really thought about Spike as a character ever since I watched Seeing Red. I was like, I don't want to think about this. And I guess I have to. I have thought about Spike from a like meta standpoint of like writing wise. Why are we writing this character in the way that we are? That is what I've been thinking about. But I haven't really been thinking about Spike as a character. But let's talk about Spike as a character. I think whatever Spike is this season, and after watching Seeing Red specifically, Spike kinda is the character that made me realize that like watching season 6 of Buffy feels like every character entered a different dimension in which everything is just several degrees more dramatic than it used to be. Everything is a little bit more problematic, everything is a little bit more complex, and everything is just more fucked up. The entire show entered the fucked up dimension. And what happens with that, and this really feels the case with Spike specifically, but also with someone like Willow, is that when you enter the fucked up dimension that is season 6, it feels like every character spirals out of control in a direction that they wouldn't have done otherwise. It feels weird because it feels like I could have watched an alternative season 6 that wasn't concerned with making every episode the worst episode of the show. Like if they made a season that was just like a normal season, then none of the characters that did all of this shit would have done this shit. And we wouldn't think that they would be out of character for doing so. If Willow hadn't spiraled into this like magic is drugs kind of thing, it wouldn't feel out of character for her to just be normal. And it wouldn't feel out of character if Spike hadn't tried to rape Buffy. It almost feels more out of character for him to try to do so. Because everything in this season feels like everybody took crazy pills. Everybody is under some sort of influence that is making them act in the worst way possible. Everybody. And that feels so weird in hindsight because it is a continuation of the story, but I can't help but feel like I'm watching a universe in which things are like slightly a little bit to the left, you know, just like everything is just a little bit like there's like an invisible dial that was just turned up for season 6 specifically. And that makes everything feel so weird. And Spike is the guy that made me realize this. Because I lied a little bit when I say I didn't think about Spike. I mean, I didn't, but I also thought about like how I feel. And the way that I feel is ultimately very conflicted because, and I've said this a little bit before. I said this in like the video where I was ranking the episodes. I feel like the version of Spike that we have in season 6 and mostly like middle of season 6 is a version of Spike that is different from a version of Spike that we had in season 5. However, it is not so different as for it to be out of character, which is why this feels weird to talk about. And the way I put it is that I feel like what we see in Spike, in specifically Seeing Red, because it's impossible to talk about Spike without talking about Seeing Red and the attempted rape scene. We can move on from that. What I feel about that is that I struggle to imagine Spike from season 5 to have done that, but at the same time, I am not surprised that Spike on paper would do something like that. And that is very interesting to me. Because we're entering a realm that is very like weirdly esoteric and people are going to feel all sorts of different ways about it because people are going to approach it from different angles. And it's that the way I look at it is that like Spike doing what he did in the bathroom feels like it makes sense when you look at Spike's like bullet points as a character. Like Spike is a vicious vampire that has lived for like 100 years or whatever, and he's killed a bunch of people and he's done a bunch of heinous shit, and he doesn't care about other people. Okay, sure, you believe that he would do what he did. But the actual character of Spike that you watch for like season 4, but then definitely season 5, and even a little bit at the beginning of season 6, like you struggle to believe that he would do what he does in the bathroom. It feels like a level of like a direction that the show takes that doesn't feel fully cohesive with what the show has been showing before. I'm not gonna say that it's out of character, and I'm not gonna say that I am surprised that Spike would do something like that, but at the same time, I feel like he wouldn't have done something like that in any other season that it wasn't a season in which the specific assignment was write the worst shit you could imagine that would happen. Because that was the assignment for season 6. I was told the assignment for every writer was write the worst day possible, and that's what the season's gonna be. And that feels like an escalation of the character that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And that makes it feel slightly out of character. Not fully. You can see the lines, you can see the vision. But at the same time, I look at it and I go like, I feel like this shouldn't have happened. And I feel similarly about Willow as well. I do. I didn't mention that earlier, but I'm going to mention it now. I feel like the direction that Willow took this season feels like, again, there was some kind of invisible dial that was turned up, and that made everybody go fucking insane this season. And on some level, like, I have to, like, when it's something so crazy like that, and this is something I mentioned before, and I feel like we're actually circling back to a topic that I touched when I finished the season, and it was that I said that I felt like at a certain point the season felt like there was too much tragedy happen at all the time for everybody, that it started to feel less dramatic and more like a weird comedy. Because at a certain point, you have to wonder, why are there so many rakes on the fucking floor? Right? Like, you're looking down and it's all rakes, and you're like, why is that the case? Like, I keep walking and getting hit in the face and it makes me feel bad. But at a certain point, I have to ask, why are they all these rakes on the floor? And that's how I feel. And that is something Spike is making me realize, is that whatever bullshit that Spike did in the bathroom, that episode that I fucking hated, because that is, I think I said this before, I'm going to make it very clear. The bathroom scene with Spike and Seeing Red is the worst shit that I've seen in this entire show. Nothing has made me feel worse than that moment, which is why I wasn't even looking at my screen. And it just kept going. I just felt so miserable. Like, Tara died that episode, and it didn't make me as upset as that Spike shit. And now I still feel the same way. Nothing has made me angrier than that moment. Nothing has made me more depressed than that moment. Which is why I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, why? And it's something I mean, other than just the absolute awful reality that I'm seeing, but it's also something that is making me think that, like, I think that what I'm noticing in Spike, and in Spike doing that versus a version of Spike from the past, from like season 5 or whatever, what is making me realize is that I feel like season 6 specifically gets so unhinged, goes so off the rails intentionally by design, that at a certain point I feel like this is not what would have happened with these characters if this was a normal season, which makes me feel like season 6 is not a normal season. The fact that it's going so crazy in this direction makes me feel like season 6 is an outlier, which is a weird feeling to have, because it creates a weird feeling of, I am watching something that's canon that's also feels not canon, because the tone is different, the stories are different, the gravity of things are different, and characters are acting in which I feel would not have happened before. So they are different. Everything is different. So at a certain point, it feels like fan fiction almost. A little bit. Not fully. A little bit. And that's something that's the scene with Spike is making me realize. Because I hated it so much that it made me realize that everything that I'm watching in season 6 is too much. And it is making me, and this is a weird thing for me to say because I actually love season 6. I do. That hasn't changed. But it is also making me feel like season 6 is not Buffy. It is making me feel like season 6 exists in its own universe, in which it's not the same as seasons 1 through 5 of Buffy, which is making me feel very, very curious as to what season 7 is going to feel like to me. Because if it just goes back to normal Buffy, it's going to be like, oh, what the fuck was season 6? It felt like a super outlier. We went to crazy world for a season and then we came back. But if it continues the gravity of like season 6, then it would feel like a little bit more consistent, but it would also still feel like, I don't know, like we went to a different place and we stayed there. To return back to Spike, I do like the beginning of the season with Spike, in which we see Spike feeling extremely guilty over what happened to Buffy, and he feels like he personally failed because he did. And he kept thinking about it, and he's like, I want to do things differently. I wish I would have done things differently. I wish I could have lived up to what I wanted to do, and I would have saved Buffy, and I didn't. I failed, and he blames himself for it. But he wants to continue being a part of Buffy's life, even though Buffy's life is not here anymore. He wants to continue existing on some level, like connected to Buffy after her death, by taking care of Dawn. He's like, I'm gonna take care of Dawn. This is now my new assignment. Because that is what Buffy, like, told me to do. It was a moment in which Buffy trusted me to do something, and I failed. So it was a moment in which, like, by keeping Dawn safe every day, he continues to live off of that trust that Buffy gave him in that moment. He's like, she trusted me to take care of Dawn, so I'm gonna take care of Dawn until they fucking die. And that is really cool. I find that extremely cool and compelling, and I really like that for the character of Spike. After Buffy comes back, Spike at first feels really weird about it, feels conflicted, and he feels like she shouldn't have. And he's kind of right in doing so. And later on, Buffy tells him that she was in heaven. He's the only person that she confides this on, which does maybe make Spike feel a little bit more like he is important. And then Buffy starts going to Spike for sex after Spike realizes that he can like fight her if he wants, and they fight a little bit, but then they just start fucking because they just want to fuck. And it's this thing in which Buffy is using him because Buffy just wants to run away, but Spike actually wants a real relationship to occur. And here's the thing about Spike. This is something I actually considered, and it's that I think that what I saw in the character of Spike in season 5 is ultimately what makes me feel a certain way or a different way to the character of Spike in season 6. And what I mean by that is that I think that when I watched that episode with Spike, in which we got to see his like backstory, when he was human, when he was turned, and then defeating the Slayers, I pierced together, like, I feel like perfectly I pierced together in that moment, that Spike has this thing in which he was rejected when he was human. Like, he was a romantic, he wanted to be in love, he looked at a woman that he liked, and he was like writing poetry and stuff, and everybody made fun of him. She rejected him, insulted him, everybody made fun of him, and so he was a pathetic loser that nobody liked, including the woman that he liked. Everybody just pushes him away because he sucks. So then, when he's offered the idea of vampirism, he couldn't resist Drusilla, because it's also this thing, let's be honest with ourselves, vampirism, vampires in general, the entirety of vampire literature is just this like idea of like, what if like a hot, mysterious person like really wanted you primally because they need to feed on you to live, but really wanted you primally. And it wouldn't be nice if they like kidnapped you and you just like left and you were whisked away by somebody who wants you, like carnally and primally. Like that is the fantasy of like vampire fantasy, like vampire literature from the very beginning. So I can see William falling for Drusilla because like Drusilla has a moment of like, here's a cute girl in an alleyway that is like, hey, I need you. And it wouldn't be nice if you just like threw away all your problems, you know? Like she used the word like effulgent or whatever. Effervescent, I don't know. It was like a word that he used, and then he felt a connection. And he was like, oh, okay, let's do it. And then he becomes a vampire. But in becoming a vampire, the part that is really interesting about Spike is that what we see when people turn into vampires is that they become like a different they become like a twisted version of who they used to be. And with Spike, that becomes so clear to me. It becomes so prominent because Spike, what does he do? He immediately goes back and he apparently he killed all those people that made fun of him. I think he killed a woman as well. Like Spike's whole deal that contrasted whatever Angel and Angelus and Darla were doing, and Drusilla even, is that Spike wanted to prove that he was strong. He wanted to prove that he was the best. He wanted to prove that he was above people. Because William, when he was alive, he had this inferiority complex because everybody made fun of him. So when he's a vampire, he's trying really hard to make up for that. Because on an emotional level, he's like, fuck you, I'm better than all of you, right? And that becomes part of his character. That becomes part of his person. And that is still true 100 years later when we meet him in the future. The current present world Spike. He still has that necessity to want to prove that he's better than you. Which is why it's also funny to take that away from him and that he can't hurt people anymore. But that is part of his character and we know where that comes from. And then we know exactly where his obsession with women comes from. He's very obsessive because when he was alive, he was a romantic. He was obsessive over girls that he liked still when he was alive, but he wasn't a creep about it. He was just a guy that would approach you and he's like, oh, I wrote something for you, you know? And some people could find that very romantic and very charming. Other people can find it a little weird and creepy, but it's the thing, it's an element of his person that he didn't have any malicious intent in when he did that when he was alive. He was just he crushes really hard on other people and he acts on that. And he's like, hey, I can't stop thinking about you, so I wrote you something, you know? So when he's a vampire, that is also true in that he becomes obsessed with the Slayers, specifically. He's also obsessed with Drusilla on some level, but then he becomes obsessed with the Slayers. Why? Well, because a Slayer is a perfect embodiment of both of the things that were true when he was alive and are now twisted. A Slayer becomes a woman that you can freely obsess with all the time because she's also obsessed with you because her entire job is to kill you. So then you go oh, so her entire existence revolves around me. Okay, I like that. So that's one element. And the other element is that if you kill a Slayer, literally the boogeyman for your kind, if you kill a Slayer, there's nothing else that would be a bigger challenge to prove that you're above the world than that. A Slayer becomes a living embodiment of both of Spike's obsessions of wanting to prove that he's the best, that he matters, and also having a woman that both of you can mutually obsess about. And it becomes an addiction to Spike. He starts chasing Slayers specifically to fight them. That's all he cares about. How much does he care about it? Well, he fucks over the corpse of the first Slayer after he kills her. And then when he kills the second, he literally takes her coat and wears it for the rest of 30 years. He fought her in the 70s in New York, I think. So for 30 years, he's just wearing the same coat every day. So it's this thing of he's so obsessed with this women, these Slayers, that his entire existence revolves around it. It makes perfect sense that he would fall in love with Buffy. Because he's already obsessed with the idea of Buffy. He's someone that obsesses over women that he can't stop thinking about. So of course that he would end up having the crush that he has on Buffy here. So that is Spike in season 5, as we learn from his backstory stuff. I will say that I made all of those connections that to me make perfect sense on the spot, but maybe a lot of other people didn't. So when we move into season 6, I feel the way you look at Spike might be defined by how much you understand those realities of Spike as a person versus you just seeing Spike as a creep. And the way I see it is almost Spike's creepiness was not to this degree previously. It became worse in season 6 because the dial was turned up. Like I said, my interpretation of Spike in previous seasons was not anywhere close to what we see in this season, specifically in seeing Red. And so much of what I'm saying is based on the bathroom scene, because that becomes a pivotal moment. I feel I don't want to say it doesn't make sense, But what I will say is that I think that season 6 almost makes me want to dismiss it. And I won't. But it almost makes me want to do that. Because everything that happens in season 6 almost happens under like the influence of outside forces. Because everybody was forcing everybody to behave in the worst way possible. But they are not real people. So they are not being forced to do anything. Things just kind of happen. So really what I'm questioning is the assignment to write the worst possible thing you can possibly imagine every episode. Because the natural escalation to that is going to be rape. Like, that's going to happen. It's the natural conclusion to telling the story of like a guy who's so obsessed with this woman. What will he do? Well, let's write the worst possible thing that we can think about. Yeah, that's what's gonna happen. Of course. Like, of course that is the conclusion. But what happens is that I question that decision to write the worst possible thing, because I don't think that if that assignment of like write the worst possible thing you can imagine, if that wasn't the idea behind writing every episode, I don't think we would have landed here. I don't think the character of Spike would have landed here in any other scenario. So that is what I'm questioning. And this is why I said earlier that I wasn't really thinking so much about Spike as a character as much as I was thinking about him on a meta level, because everything that I have to say about Spike is coming from outside the world of Buffy. It's coming from like the angle of like, why did we write this? You know, like why was that the reason? Let's focus on that why. And the why is for a couple of reasons. The first one being that we had to write the worst possible thing. And the other thing is that I feel, and I don't know how much I want to say about this, because the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to make arguments against myself, which is what I do a lot, by the way. In case you don't watch many of my videos, you're kind of new. The way I work is that I play devil's advocate against myself. Like, I will say a thing and then I will counteract myself, and then I'll do that over and over for like 30 minutes before I just move on. That's what I do every day of my goddamn life. So I don't know how much I want to say this with any confidence, because like on some level I'm already like counteracting myself, but I do feel like on some level, because I read an interview with James Masters in which like he says that like Joss Whedon just straight up didn't want Spike to be the fan favorite that he was, because Spike was like the most beloved character in the show, and he didn't want that. He also didn't want people to feel like Buffy needed to end with Spike or wanted to go with Spike, or that Spike was the right choice specifically, which is something that people, I guess, were clamoring for, you know, shippers. People were like, yeah, Buffy should be with Spike. And then Joss Whedon was like, no. And like I said before in the video where I ranked every episode, it feels like to me like that is making Spike try to rape Buffy feels like the nuclear option. It feels like you're trying really hard to put your foot down and be like, no, they are not gonna be together because he's a bad guy. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself like, you are writing the character. Spike is not a bad guy because Spike doesn't exist. You are writing him to be a bad guy. But you really could just write whatever you want. You chose to do this. Like that's what I feel, you know? And Joss Whedon didn't write that. But he makes ultimately the choices of what happens with these characters and with the storylines, because he's the showrunner. He's the one that ultimately has to say as to what happens. And to me, this makes me feel a little bit like, why was this the choice? I don't think it's... My issues with it are never coming from the angle of, you shouldn't show this. My issues come from the angle of like, why did we even show this? Because it feels like it comes out of the left field. It feels inconsistent to me. It's something that I understand, but it's something that to me feels inconsistent. Unless we accept the fact that season 6 is the season with the dial turn up. With the fucked up, everybody goes crazy dial turn up. That is the only way in which this makes a degree of sense. I'm not going to say it's not canon because it is. It's what happened. But all I can think about is like looking at the way the show is being ran and being like, but like, why did you do that though? You know, like why? And the only thing I can see the why of is natural escalation, which to me feels like getting to a level of like showing something so awful and fucked up for just escalation, which to me feels a little bit disrespectful. But okay, I'm not gonna say that it's bad. It's just something that baffles me. And it's something that made a lot of people very uncomfortable. And a lot of people just be done with this. But the other thing, and the one that I'm really focusing on, is like, it feels like you're trying to make people hate Spike. Because you're trying to tell everybody, like, you shouldn't like Spike. This guy sucks. And I've been telling you that he sucks for years now. And I'm writing him as a fucking creep. He steals Buffy's, like, underwear, sneaks into her house. He can't move on from her. And that makes him a bad guy. And ultimately, the way I land in that conversation, the way I personally land in that conversation, is that women can be horny for whatever they want. It's fiction. Who gives a fuck? If a lot of fans really like Spike being a weirdo and a creep, they are completely free to do so. And trying to deliberately make him be the worst possible guy you can imagine just to prove that point tells me that you see the relationship between audience and showrunner as one of like submission, of like, what I write is the word of God, and whatever your interpretation is and whatever you like, I don't give a fuck about, you're wrong. And I'm not saying that that is the way things are. That is just my interpretation of it, or one of them. Like I said, I'm kind of like, in my head, I'm already like making points against myself. Like, so I don't know how much way I want to have on that. But that is the way I kind of look at it. And I have more to say about that, but in order to do that, I would have to go into a tangent talking about Joss Whedon, the person. I don't want to do that right now. Maybe after I finish the show, I can do that. But right now, not so much. But that is something that could be the case. I'm not saying that it is, but it's something that could be the case. Because I did read an interview where it was clear that James Masters said, like, they made this choice because he thought that Joss Whedon really just wanted to tell people that, like, Buffy shouldn't be with Spike because Spike sucks. And I'm going to show you why. And I'm sitting here like, you're writing that. Spike is not a bad person because Spike doesn't exist. You write Spike to be a bad person, but you could simultaneously just not do that. So what you're doing is that you're deliberately trying to write Spike to be a bad person, and that means that you have like some kind of like idea that you want to push with this guy, but that means that you want to enforce your ideas as the ultimate truth for Spike, when ultimately the way that I see writing and media is that it's something that we can participate on. It's something that whenever you read a book, you have an interpretation of it. Whenever you're watching a show, you have an interpretation of it. And you have taste, and you have likes, and you have things that you can like, and you have things that you can just not like. Doubling down in wanting to make Spike worse feels like you're trying to enforce something that ultimately is not your place to do. Because if a bunch of women want to be horny for James Masters Spike, then they are allowed to do so. You shouldn't just deliberately try to go the other way because you're like, fuck you, that's wrong. That sounds like your fucking problem, man. Just because you're the showrunner doesn't mean that you get to bully your fans like that. That's how I feel. Is that what happened? I don't know. I couldn't say that with any certainty. And now that I have said that in public, I know that people are gonna start fucking throwing hands in the comment section. That's okay. Because at the end of the day, I'm gonna do the thing that maybe Joss Whedon did or didn't do. And it's that you can have your own interpretation of this. You can feel whichever way you want to feel, and you can see the way in which the character was written in a specific way for one reason or another. Ultimately, we don't know that. But the way I look at it, it makes me feel like this was a choice for no reason other than to just like make people hate this guy. Because like Spike is a character that I can envision a world in which Spike becomes a more interesting character and he doesn't do what he did. He goes a different direction, and they didn't do that. They went with this one. Why did we go with this one? I don't know, man. We just wanted it to be the escalation of something super fucked up, which kind of undermines the reality of it. Or we just wanted to say that Spike is a horrible person and you should hate him, which kind of succeeded because I was so fucking done with this guy. And part of me is still done with this guy. But now I'm putting the production of the show into question. And that is not something I ever want to do. That is ultimately what Spike, and also this entire season, kind of has something that makes me feel this way. And it's that at a certain point, the amount of fucked up shit that happens is so much that I'm no longer questioning the character. I'm just questioning the idea behind why we made this. I'm not questioning Spike, I'm questioning Joss Whedon. I'm like, why? That's where I'm landing, honestly. It's like, because Spike is not real. He's not a real person. I can't question or chastise or reprimand or whatever. I can't hate him. I mean, I can, but it's pointless to do so because he's not real. So my frustration then is redirected towards the people who made it. And that's not a place I want to be at. I want to be 100% clear on this. I don't want to do that. But that's where I'm ended up going, because where else am I going to direct this to? That's where I'm landing with this Spike situation. I guess what I can say about Spike as a character is that, like, I don't fucking know where he's gonna go from now on. I don't know. He's gonna get his soul back, I guess, and he's gonna come back and some other bullshit is gonna happen. And I'm gonna have another Spike discussion thing after the show is over. So I'm gonna do that, I guess. But right now, I don't know what I can say about Spike from a character standpoint, because anything that I can think about just leads in the same direction, which is like, I don't know, it got really weird and really fucked up really quickly. Why? I don't know. And then I look at the writer and I'm like, why do you do that? That's how I feel. Because, like, I will say that I really enjoyed the character of Spike up until the moment in which it became so upsetting for me to think about it anymore, which was seeing Red. Because before that point, I enjoyed the complexity of Spike actually wanting to be romantically involved with Buffy, feeling like Buffy's the only person that can actually give him that, but also he's being like weirdly manipulative in the sense that he's actually wanting to drag the primal version of Buffy that is like, you should give in to your desires, this is what you really want kind of shit. But like, ultimately he's a vampire, of course he's gonna do that. That's what all vampires do. That's the entirety of vampire literature fiction. Like that's it. So of course he's gonna do something like that. But like, I found it very interesting that Buffy then ends up coming the other end and landing on the other side, which is like, you know, like it's unfair that I'm treating you in this way. You're more than just a piece of meat. You're a person, and I'm gonna treat you like a person. And I felt like that was one of the best moments in the entire show. Honestly, the acknowledgement that Spike is actually a person, that's the acknowledgement that Spike is actually human. And okay, I'm remembering something I wanted to say. Fuck it. I was gonna stop recording, and now I'm like, I remember a thing that I wanted to mention. The acknowledgement that Spike is actually human by Buffy in that moment, calling him William and saying that she's taking advantage of him and she doesn't want to do that anymore because it's not fair to him. That is one of the best things that the show has done. That is one of the best moments in the show, I think. I really, really like that moment. I really like that. And I feel like that is slightly undermined by the idea that Spike, because he's a vampire, he's a monster. And he will never not be a monster unless he were to get his soul back. And that is something I take issue with. Because, and this might just be me, I find the idea of a vampire, something that doesn't have a soul, but still being a person, I find that very compelling. I find the idea of actually treating Spike as a guy, as just a normal dude, very compelling. And this is something that the show has tiptoeing around for a long time. And Angel, the show, has also done that, in the sense that we start to see demons and monsters less as demons and monsters and more as people that deserve a level of understanding and empathy and sympathy, because they're also just hanging out. And Buffy the show, as well as Angel the show, has continuously gone more in that direction, treating demons less as episodic villain of the week kind of guys, and more as, these are real people and you should care about them on some level because they have lives. The idea that Spike has the journey that Spike has been embarking on ever since season 4, when he got the chip, of like, what is Spike without his ability to kill and fight? Now he's just a dude. And then we get to see how people continuously treat him as a dude, but also as a monster. And we see how that is actually kind of unfair. It's unfair the way in which they see Spike as a monster, as a soulless vampire, when he's not. He's actually a person. He's actually a guy. He has attitudes about him that suck, that are bad, but so does real people. So does any other person in the goddamn real world. Spike is a guy that is very flawed, but that doesn't make him less of a person. When Buffy acknowledges him as a person by calling his name and by actually being like, I'm taking advantage of you and I don't want to do that because that is unfair to you, Spike is being given the decency and honesty that a normal person would have. And that is awesome, and I love that. That is a moment that is very, very meaningful to me. The idea that Spike would assault Buffy in that bathroom, and then we go in the direction of like the reason why he does that is because he's a monster, right? Like that's why Buffy is like, I could never trust you, and that's why Spike is like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get my soul back so I can stop being a monster. If we go that direction, it feels like it undermines everything else that was interesting that I just mentioned about the idea that being a soulless monster, you're still a person. The fact that we go into the direction of like, no, if you're a soulless monster, you're actually a monster. You're not a person. You hurt and you suck, actually. And I'm sitting here like, I like the idea that Spike sucks because Spike sucks as a person, not because he's a soulless vampire. Because I like the idea that being a soulless vampire actually doesn't really have anything to do with what you are as a person. I like the idea that Spike is not inherently bad. Spike just chooses to be bad and makes mistakes. And that means that Spike can actually be better. And we have seen Spike be better. We have seen Spike change for the better. Gradually. Slowly. He's still kind of a dick, but he has changed for the better. And that's something I like. I like the idea that you're not inherently bad. You can be better. You just have to choose to do that. Seeing Spike do that shit in the bathroom and then the storyline becomes Spike is bad because he's a soulless vampire, that is something that I take issue with because it feels like it's directly going against the part of Spike that was interesting to me before, which is Spike is just a person. But now we're going once again to the place of Spike is not a person because he doesn't have a soul. And Spike seems to be acknowledging that of like, I'm not a person because I don't have a soul, so now I'm going to have a soul again. And I will say that this is partially speculation because maybe season 7 is going to grab what I just said and is going to be like, yeah, I agree with you. Like maybe Spike is going to come back and Spike is going to be like, I got my soul back. I can feel things. I'm sorry. Like I shouldn't have done what I did. I'm so sorry or whatever. And maybe Buffy's just going to look at him dead in the eyes and it's going to be like, you did that because of who you are, not because of your lack of a soul. Maybe. And maybe that's going to be what the story is. And if that's the case, I'd be like, okay, I'm following. I kind of like it. It'd be fucked up still, but I would be on board because it would actually be something that kind of goes on the idea that being a soulless vampire, he was still a person as a soulless vampire. That would be cool. I'd like that. Because we have spent so much time humanizing Spike, who is a soulless monster, that landing in actually him being a soulless monster means that we shouldn't have humanized him because he's not human. He's not a person. Landing there makes me feel bad. I don't like that. I just straight up don't like that. So maybe season 7 is going to be a little different. Maybe season 7 is going to actually not do that. So that is something that's I can hope and look forward towards. But right now, that is an element that I also really didn't like. After I thought about it, I really didn't like about what I saw in Seeing Red. Is that it feels like we're really leaning into the idea that Spike is a bad person because he's a soulless vampire. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, no. I just don't see Spike as the kind of person that would have done that. But it would be interesting if they said, no, he is the kind of person that would have done that. And that was not because he was soulless. He just sucks. That would be interesting. It would be more interesting. I don't know if I would agree with that in the sense that I don't know if season 5 Spike would have done that. But again, we'll see where this goes. And then maybe I can give you an updated report on Spike after season 7. But like right now, the way I feel is I feel like everybody in season 6 took crazy pills. Spike is no exception. In fact, he's the shining bright example alongside someone like Willow and also Buffy Summers that they all just got the dial turned up to 11. Everybody went crazy, full escalation. Everything sucks. Everything's fucked up. Good job, everybody. That was the season wrap. And I'm sitting here like, that feels slightly out of character. That feels like, okay. I hate talking about Homestuck. I like referencing Homestuck because I like giving people psychic damage, but I never want to talk about it. But I will talk about it now. Homestuck was a webcomic that I read in like 2014 or whatever, and it was from 2009 to 2016. It was like a whole phenomenon online, and I read it, and I wasn't as hardcore and diehard into it as other people that I knew were. So I know about it, and I mostly use it in order to give other people psychic damage, reminding themselves of their cringe selves. But something that Homestuck did is that a lot of what Homestuck was the author, Andre Hussey, being combative against his own user base, his own fandom. He kept looking at the response that fans had and then writing the comic page and being like, fuck you, you're wrong, basically, of like, you make fun of that. He's making fun of, he's responding to people that are watching the comic, which became its own like spiral of like bullshit. But something that occurred is that after the comic was over, there was a lot of feelings being thrown around, and a big part of the ending of the comic was just like, essentially the main antagonist of the comic is a bad fan. Is the main antagonist of the comic. I'm not shitting you. It's like a time-traveling universal power who's also a shitty fan. But what ends up happening is that after the comic is over and there's a bunch of feelings being thrown around, a couple years later, they release a book, a full-ass book, that is the epilogues. And the epilogues are interesting because they are two different stories that are kind of presented to you as fan fiction, because they are presented to you with the layout of AO3, which is a fan fiction website. So it is telling you that this is kind of fan fiction, but it is also an official product. And what happens is that in those two stories, you have two different like realities of what the epilogue would be. And those realities are what the different types of fan would want the story to be. You have a story in which everybody lives alive and there's high drama and there's relationships and there's like a lot of like children being born and shit. And that is one story. And then the other story is a story in which like everybody's just killing each other. Everyone's just fighting. There's a lot of big things being thrown around. And it's this thing of like, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, the reason why I mentioned this is because season 6 feels like one half of that epilogue. It feels like they wrote this with the intention of it being like fucking crazy off the rails. And it's using the same characters and it is official, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels crazy. And on some level, it feels like a little bit of fan fiction. But it is the official product, so you kind of have to like look at it and you have to be like, how do I feel about this? And it doesn't help the fact that like season 5 felt like an ending to the show too. Season 6 actually starts to feel more and more like the Homestuck epilogues the more I think about it. But that makes me so much more curious for season 7. Because I've heard people telling me, like, I watch up until season 5 and then I stop. I don't want to see the rest. Because season 5 is like a perfect story with a perfect ending. And then season 6 just feels like, all right, here's more bullshit and everything sucks. Where I'm just going to grab all the characters you like and I'm just going to grab all these things and everything's going to be so fucked up. You guys like that? You like fucked up stuff? No, you don't? Well, fuck you. And it's like, should we be doing that? That is how I feel. It feels like a little bit too much, but I still like it. Because, like, unfortunately, I am the kind of person that would like this kind of shit. But it doesn't mean that I have to stop questioning the reasoning behind this being made and how it was being made. If that makes any sense. It doesn't. It's okay. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to make sense inside my head. Because that's ultimately the way I feel. Okay. I don't think I missed out on characters. I think I talk about everybody. Yeah, I think that's it for Buffy season 6. At least when it comes to characters. I mean, that's pretty much everything, really. Like, I don't think I have much else to say. I covered every episode individually. I covered my overall feelings, and this is the characters video. And I also talked a lot about the way I feel about season 6 in general in this video even, which with like the way it was written and how I feel about it somewhat. But it must be feeling weird to watch this as a viewer because like it feels like I'm shitting on season 6 sometimes, but then I keep saying that I really like it. Sorry for being weird, but all of that is true. I do like season 6 a lot, and I wouldn't be saying as much as I'm saying right now if it wasn't for the fact that I really, really like this season because of the complexity this has. Like, this character's video was longer than the episode's video. It was longer than every single one of the previous videos. Okay, it's been like half an hour for you, but for me it was instantaneous. Hi, I came from a different point in time. I'm recording this after I recorded the original recording that you were watching, talking about each character. This is a couple days later. Hi. And the reason why is because I wanted to add a couple things about Tara, which I did, and now I'm going to add a couple things about Spike. And the reason why I want to do that is primarily because sometimes I say shit And as I'm saying them, I'm already thinking like, I don't know if I fully believe that. Like, sometimes I'm already thinking like, I don't know if I'm like fully behind what I said. And I think that I said something to that degree when I was recording it. But once again, I want to just say that some of the shit that I say, I think back at it and I'm like, I don't know if that's something I would have liked to say, you know? Or that like I'm fully behind, maybe just like 40% behind, you know? Because the way my brain works, you probably should notice it by this point, but like the way my brain works is that I say something and then I immediately create some kind of argument against it, and then that allows me to evolve into a different argument, and I just do that like 50 times, and then I arrive at some kind of thought that I feel comfortable with. I think that whatever the fuck I have to say about Spike is going through that process, but like 5 times as more times, and I don't think there's an ending to it. I think that I can keep making counter arguments against myself, and I will never arrive at a point in which I will feel comfortable. I think I can just keep saying words about Spike, and I will be saying them, but I don't know if I'll ever be happy with them. But there is something about Spike that I actually do want to talk about that I didn't really think about very much originally. I think I mentioned a little bit of this when I talked about it in episode 22. But let me mention it here, and it's that I focus mostly in this specific video talking about like the aspect of like writing Spike and why we're writing him that way. But I want to talk about Spike as a character actually now, because that is mostly what this video is supposed to be. Even if I failed at that is something that I should do. And it's that Spike goes through the willing transformation of wanting to get back a soul. And that is something that is actually worth talking about, because even Angel didn't willingly do that. The fact that Spike tries to willingly do that actually says a lot about Spike. Now, why would he do that? And I think the obvious reason, even though it hasn't been confirmed, but the obvious reason would be because Spike wants to not hurt Buffy anymore in the way that he has. Or he wants Buffy to just like him. And because like having a soul is something that Spike feels like, oh, Buffy will like me now that I have a soul. Now that I'm a real person, I have a shot. But I guess here's something that is very intriguing, because Spike goes through the willing transformation of wanting to get back a soul, and he goes through all these trials in order to do that. It really makes you think about like the idea of like what makes a good person, because it's a person, their experiences, their actions, their feelings, like what exactly is it? Because like Spike is going through this thing of like, I want to get a soul back. If we are to assume that he's trying to do so in order to be better for Buffy instead of continuing to hurt her, or wanting to do so out of a feeling to want to feel remorse, but being unable to feel remorse, and that is something in which he's trying to awaken it manually, then like he's already feeling remorse. He's already feeling bad for her. Like that's what I'm thinking about. It's this like weird thing in which like, oh, I want to feel certain desires, so I wish I could feel that desire. And it's like, the fact that you want to wish for that already means that you want, like, that desire is already there. Spike wanting to gain a soul back already hints at the idea that Spike is already not as bad of a person. I'm rolling my eyes here. Is not as bad of a person as the show wants us to believe. But at the same time, the show does do the shit that Spike does in the bathroom. So it's very difficult to actually grasp exactly where Spike is coming from, what exactly does that mean for the person that he is and the person that he's about to become, and why those reasons are happening. And I wish I could get more of Spike. And I'm probably going to do so in season 7, because we're probably going to get a lot more Spike there to like actually try to figure out what the deal with him is. But something that really makes me think is like, to what degree do I want to feel like Spike is trying to be a good person? And in trying to be a good person, he's already being a good person, you know, because like we're really trying to figure out what is like the nature of a vampire versus like the reality of like what are they like, what are they gonna do versus, you know, normal, honest human feelings or whatever. But like I never got behind that idea, because like at a certain point the show lost me with that. Because at a certain point, the idea that demons and vampires, and this is true for Buffy and Angel, the idea that they are inherently something, like fully, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna throw that out the window, you know? because we spending so much time with Spike just being a normal dude that I just don't believe that the nature of a vampire is one in which those things would be true anymore. I just see a person. And the show, both shows, are really going forward with the idea that, hey, demons, vampires, humans, they're all people. You know, like there are certain things or certain needs that they go through, but like ultimately they're all just people. Like we had like an episode of Angel that I always think back to, in which like we had like demon Nazis, and they were like throwing a bunch of other demons that they saw as lesser into like camps to like incinerate them. It was crazy. It was one of the early Angel episodes too, but it was one of those things where like it really drove home that we're doing a lot of empathy for these demons. And then Angel spent a lot of time being like, yeah, not all demons are bad. Proof, our main character, is a demon, but also a lot of other demons are just kind of hanging. And then we started really going hard on the Spike stuff on Buffy. So that really made me feel like, okay, the denomination of a demon or a vampire, like to me, I'm just going to throw that out the window because I don't think that really matters. I still feel that way. However, I don't know how to apply that to Spike because unfortunately, I feel like I need to see more Spike. I wish I could have some kind of like hearing Spike tell me why he goes through what he's doing, trying to get a soul back, because I want to hear exactly what his thought process was and what his feelings are. But to me, they are very human. And in wanting to be better and putting herself through the process of wanting to be better, he's already a better person than he was a couple years ago. Which really raises the question of like, if I am to believe that that's the case, then I could say that William, the human version of Spike, would also be a creep rapist. That means that like, it's not like he's like dark, inherent vampire nature or whatever that like doesn't have morals or empathy. It's like, no, William would have been the same way. Because if I am making this idea that like they are the same, then William would have also, there is a world in which William would have also done something like that. And that would be interesting to explore. And I suppose that is like something that I'm calling right now. If it happens, it would be kind of cool. That it wouldn't be cool, but I would feel proud of calling this. And it's that in season 7, we're going to get to see William again. And William is going to be just as bad as Spike, you know? Like, but in like a more pathetic way. In like a more like, I don't fucking, like Jonathan way. In like, he's pathetic, but he's also like simping and doing bad things. Like that could still be the case because like his obsession is ultimately his like main trait that is also bad, and maybe that will be the case. So that's a shot that I'm throwing into the air here, and maybe we'll land somewhere. I don't know. The other thing that we could be doing, and it maybe is what season 7 is gonna be like. Again, there's a lot that like I don't know, and I'm just making a speculation about Spike here. But something that they could be doing with Spike is that, hey, Spike is just going to be a good dude in season 7. And if Spike is just a good dude because William is a good dude, then I guess we're just really doing the thing of like, yeah, vampires are bad, but humans are good kind of thing. But it would be a way in which to actually tell a story in which people could like Spike without feeling like it's a controversial thing to do so. And maybe that was the move all along. Maybe that was the secret move all along. Because people really love Spike, and then Joss Whedon was like, no, Spike is a bad person, but I'm going to do you a solid. I'm going to turn him into a good person, and now you can like him. Which I still don't really know. Like, I don't really like that, if that is the move, but we'll see. However, yeah, like, I guess that's a possibility. We can tell a story about Spike being a better person. And in doing so, we are throwing out the window everything that I felt that was interesting about the idea of vampires and demons being possibly good people. But because I like the fact that Spike goes through the effort of wanting to change, to revert back and get his soul back. I think that is interesting. I think that makes Spike interesting. But if we're going to double down on the fact that having a soul makes you good, even though it doesn't, like Warren had a soul, he wasn't good, you know? But like, if we're gonna tell that story, I wouldn't really like that very much, because again, it would feel like we're throwing that out the window. The idea that, you know, demons and vampires could be cool, but also it's really also a move that makes me think that the deliberate move by Mr. Whedon was to tell people was to tell the audience that like, you can like Spike because he's a bad dude, but I'm gonna turn you in him into a good dude, and now you can like him. And it would also feel bad to me if that was the case. My cold shot, and I think that what would be interesting, I don't know if it would be good, but it would be interesting, is to tell the story that when William comes back, and he's human, he has a soul now. I mean, he's not human, he's a vampire, but he has a soul now. That he would still suck. That he would still be like selfish and try to force his will upon Buffy in some way because of his obsession. And if that was the case, then we really start exploring the idea that, yeah, he like William and Spike, the problem was never vampirism. The problem was never the demon nature. The problem is just the fact that this dude kind of sucks. Like, that was actually the problem. And I would feel conflicted about it because it would double down on the idea that Spike sucks, which feels like it's taking a jab at the audience who really likes Spike. Because at this point, I have to consistently keep in mind that Spike is like the fan favorite, and that Joss Whedon didn't like that. So to me, it feels like, okay, there's a different element at play here. But it would be an interesting story to tell. It would be. I would like that. So I guess that is the thing about Spike that I want to leave on an end note here, because I kept thinking about it and I'm like, I think this is cool actually, and I just have to see what happens in season 7. Like, that's really ultimately what this comes down to, because like even I watched the ending to I watched some of the comments in episode 22, and so many of the comments were like talking about Spike, and I'm sitting here like, Spike was barely in the episode. Like, Spike doesn't matter. Spike is like the cliffhanger, but the cliffhanger doesn't tell you shit. The cliffhanger is just like, he gets a soul now, dun dun dun, and then it just roll credits. Like, it doesn't actually give you anything other than something to look forward to next season. So I don't really have much to say, because it's just like, oh yeah, okay, this is happening. I can speculate, but I don't actually have any information to pull from in order to be able to call correctly like where we're going and what is the story going to be, which is what matters to me the most. Like, I don't actually care that he gets a soul as much as I care about, okay, what story are we telling with the fact that he's getting a soul back? You know, like, what is the intention here? What is the play? So yeah, that's how I feel about the Spike stuff. And I think that's going to be it. This is like the final thing I said in the original video, so I guess this is going to be the final thing I say about this whole video. Unless I think of anything else to say in the next 5 seconds, I think I'm done. So yeah, that's going to be it for the BUFFYCAST Season 6 in terms of characters. So yeah, I'm just going to leave now, and I'm going to go back to the original video outro. Thank you for watching this. Bye. But if you would like to watch the beginning of Season 7, it's definitely there over at Patreon. Check out the Patreon, link in the description below, bottom of the screen. All sorts of cool stuff that I do. Let's begin Season 7. Alright, thank you so much, you guys, for tuning in. Bye-bye. Take care.